Chapter 472, The Soul of the Bridge of Immortal Treading. Despite that, Meng Hao's body was still transformed into a statue of ice. He stood motionless within the layers, ensuring his mind was not exterminated. However, the vortex on his right arm suddenly exploded with intensity. Meng Hao could feel the force of the Earth-type power rising within the vortex. The gravitational force seemed inexhaustible. It nearly overwhelmed the power of the frost soil. As for Xianxia, she was an immortal divinity who had possessed a physical body. However, at this moment she was nearly as weak as Meng Hao. The sword Qi avoided her, but she too fell and instantly became an ice statue. The main difference was that she could hold out for much longer than Meng Hao. Up above, the boy standing next to the old man smiled and said, 100. The instant his voice rang out, Han Shan's 100,000 clones finished exterminating all the bridge slaves in the area. However, within the aura of bitter cold, figures began to appear. These were the bridge slaves Han Shan had just slain. They reappeared without injury. Not a single one was dead. In fact, when Meng Hao looked out from within the ice statue at the bridge slaves, there was one girl who looked familiar. "So do you understand?" said the old man coolly. Han Shan stood there, taciturn. With a bitter look, he lifted the alcohol flagon and took a drink. The next person to speak was not the old man, but rather the boy. "In my world, if you exercise faith in me, you will never die, can never be slain. Isn't that a good thing? Eternal life, indestructibility. The only requirement is that you rebuild me." More voices rang out, not the boys, but the surrounding bridge slaves, all in unison. It was as if they were one person. "Exercise faith in me, and you can live forever. Exercise faith in me, and you can never be destroyed. Exercise faith in me, and you can exist with heaven and earth. Exercise faith in me, understand my Tao. My Tao is your Tao." Next, the old man, the boy, and the bridge slaves all spoke together. "I am the spirit of the bridge of immortal treading. You came here 3,000 years ago to prostrate yourself before me. You made a promise to me. You wanted everlasting life, limitless life force, so that you could cultivate your solitary sword song. At that time, you had only 10 years of longevity left. I told you to exercise faith in me. However, you went back on your word." The last 3 words came out in a roar of endless fury. "You clearly consented, then went back on your word, all because of the woman who was with you. She pleaded with you to change your mind. Her persuasion distracted you, and what she did made you break your promise. I never imagined that to ensure you would never exercise faith in me, she would shout those very words before you. She became a bridge slave. That was what woke you up." The voice thundered to the heavens, roaring in all directions. Han Shan's face was pale and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. This blood was not from an injury, it was from the intense pain in his heart. His memories opened up. He saw his wife at his side, pleading as she grasped his robe. But he was obsessed. He wanted eternal life. It wasn't until he saw her walk away that he became clear-headed. "I've thought about it for the past 3,000 years, sighed Han Shan. He lifted his head, his eyes filled with determination. He walked forward. The instant he walked, the bridge slaves roared and charged at him. As they did, Han Shan took a deep breath. His azure sword roared, and of the 100,000 clones around him, 10,000 disappeared. His sword swept and the frost aura rose. In an instant, millions of bridge slaves were frozen in place. His hair turned white and he aged. This sword move was the solitary sword song he had created. Only he could hear this song. It was sung in his heart, something only he could know. The song could only be sung once in a lifetime. That one song did not burn life force, but merged it into the song, creating a solo of life. My choice that year was a complicated one and in many ways irrational. It was as if I was bedeviled. As he strode forward, Han Shan waved his sword again. 10,000 more clones disappeared and more bridge slaves became statues of ice. By now, his hair was completely white. At the same time, Han Shan's aura exploded. Because of his solo of life, his cultivation base and life force exploded. Meng Hao had no idea what realm Han Shan's cultivation base was in, but now his power far exceeded anything Meng Hao could comprehend. Life is simply about how time flows. Life is summed up in 10 sword blows. Later, I wanted to understand if it was really because of your summons, Han Shan said lightly, walking toward the mountain. He waved his sword a 3rd time. It whistled forth and the frost could not block it. It slammed into the mountain, shaking it. The faces of the old man and the boy suddenly flickered. As for Han Shan, his hair fell out and his body grew decrepit. He was no longer middle-aged. He was an old man, his skin wrinkled and sagging. He was no longer majestic and heroic in appearance. However, his eyes and will were more resolute than ever, filled with stubbornness and without regret. Even if it meant walking to his death, he would rescue his wife. I regret bringing Zuer here. I came so we could both acquire everlasting life. His voice was soft as a fourth sword swept out. The names on the mountain grew dim, the palace quaked, and cracks appeared on its surface. "Hanshan, what are you doing?" cried the old man, his expression wrathful and vicious. The boy beside him glared at Hanshan with a savage expression. Meng Hao watched silently from within the ice statue. The vortex on his right arm sucked in the frost soil. His majestic cultivation base slowly rose. He saw in Hanshan a persistence that would shock heaven and earth. Such persistence was like faith. "What is my persistence like?" thought Meng Hao. "I will never forget what happened that day," said Hanshan. His fifth sword swept out with power to rend the earth. It struck the mountain peak, a roar filled the air, and the boy was slain. Disbelief filled the boy as he transformed into ice. His last memory was a voice, calm yet terrifying as death approached. "I also pondered why you called me here," said Hanshan. "When I completed my solitary sword song, snow fell. My whole world was frozen over. Everything my sword touched became ice. Then I understood. Old memories surfaced. I am the frost-soiled demon emperor." A sixth sword blasted out. The boy's head was lopped off and the palace exploded. Cracks appeared on the mountain peak. Hanshan now looked ancient, surrounded by a thick death aura, his body withered. "More accurately, I am his clone. Countless years ago, I evaded the pursuit of the Jade ancestor. I lived in the world of mortals for countless generations until I finally understood it." His seventh sword descended, and the mountain peak shattered. The old man shook, his eyes filled with dread. As the mountaintop shattered, two butterfly demon spirits flew out, born of the destruction. They fluttered, shooting off into the distance. No one heeded the butterfly demon spirits. Only Xianxia noticed, but locked in ice, she could only watch as they sped into the distance. "I don't care what your goal is. I only want my wife back." An eighth sword descended, slashing through the mountain toward the old man. The old man made no move to block the sword. However, as the sword neared him, the space before him grew blurry, and a woman appeared. She looked up at the sword, then at Hanshan. Hanshan stopped in his tracks. The sword stopped. Everything disappeared except the woman before him. She was not consummately beautiful, but rather exceedingly gentle. She gazed down at Hanshan. "I won't go with you, nor can I. I am a bridge slave and have been since that year." She looked somewhat confused. "When will the bridge of immortality reappear like new, sir? On what day will we again lay eyes on you?" As the woman's voice echoed, the old man began to vanish. He looked calmly at Hanshan. "I am the soul of the bridge of immortality," he said. "All of the bridge slaves are a part of me. If I give up my memories of this time, then when I die, your wife will become the new bridge soul. There is no enmity between me and you. All of this was part of our mission, to restore the bridge of immortal treading. Originally, you should have been the bridge soul. That is why the esteemed demon emperor hid you all those years ago. Now, however, the task will fall to your wife. My mission is complete, although not perfectly. My task was to find you and bring you back. This was the final command of the esteemed demon emperor before his death: find you and make you a bridge slave." With that, he faded away. The instant he vanished, clarity returned to the woman's eyes. She saw Hanshan and recalled her old memories. For the first time since becoming a bridge slave, she saw everything clearly. With a bitter smile, she looked at Hanshan. "Kill me, allow me to be released." Her words echoed. Meng Hao sighed as he witnessed it. That clarity lasted only a moment. When a bridge slave becomes the bridge soul, they receive one moment of clarity. After that moment, though conscious, the bridge slave is no longer the same person. That person would be the new soul of the bridge of immortal treading. Chapter 473, Frost Soil Success. Now the vortex on Meng Hao's right arm absorbed the frost soil in the area. This frost soil, filled with the power to exterminate anything, caused the vortex to gradually coagulate. A glowing white character for Earth began to appear. As the ancient character for Earth grew clearer, Meng Hao's cultivation base roared as a new power surged through him, making him even stronger. Every beat of his heart sent blood coursing through his veins. A boundary had been crossed. His cultivation base grew stronger, his gold core more powerful than before. It's still not enough. The aura of this frost soil is actually much more intense than that of the celestial soil. His eyes glittered with determination as he rotated his cultivation base. He focused all his energy on absorbing more power from the frost soil. I've struck it lucky to absorb this frost soil. If I can use it to form my earth-type totem tattoo, who knows how much more powerful it will be than a celestial soil totem. His eyes filled with anticipation. Roaring filled his body. Though trapped in the ice statue, the frost soil continued to be sucked in, causing it to thin. However, the effect wasn't noticeable. After all, the land mass formed by the frost soil was enormous. Xianxia lay nearby in another ice statue, looking from Han Shan and the woman toward Meng Hao. What's he doing? She thought. The shocking scene had distracted her from Meng Hao's aura. Now she noticed. She stared with wide, disbelieving eyes, shaken by Meng Hao's audacity. He's absorbing the frost soil. Frost soil is unique in all the Ninth Mountain. According to the legend, long, long ago, even before cultivators existed, a land mass was born that was completely white and infinitely cold. Eventually, countless years ago, when cultivators were just beginning to appear in the Ninth Mountain, it gained consciousness. However, as the land of frost soil expanded, it eventually turned into a person. He swept over the Ninth Mountain and sea for countless years and was known as the Frost Soil Demon. Eventually, he came to be called an emperor, the Frost Soil Demon Emperor. Now, Meng Hao is actually absorbing the power of the frost soil. Although this particular area of frost soil was created by the bridge soul of the Bridge of Immortal Treading, clearly, this whole area is the work of the Frost Soil Demon Emperor. If it wasn't, then the frost soil could not possibly appear. What Meng Hao is absorbing is not true frost soil, but rather an ornamental version of it. However, it still far, far exceeds celestial soil. There's really not even any way to compare the two. According to the ancient records in the sect, not including Lord Li, there were 3 greater demons in the ancient immortal demon sect. They were the ones who built the Bridge of Immortal Treading. Isn't he worried he's going to take it too far and die? Xianxia had never imagined she would become envious of a mere core formation cultivator. True, he could slay nascent soul cultivators, but to see him absorbing frost soil was extraordinary, enough to arouse the jealousy of an immortal. Even as Meng Hao absorbed the power of the frost soil, Han Shan's soft sigh could be heard. He looked at his wife, his expression warm. He had heard her words and could see her expression was no longer clear, but frustrated. Deep in her eyes burned a mysterious fire, like that in the old man's eyes. "Come be with me, okay," said the woman softly. There was something very strange in her voice as she looked at Han Shan. Han Shan closed his eyes and remained silent for a moment. Then he smiled warmly. He knew that the person in front of him was no longer his wife. She had truly become the soul of the Bridge of Immortal Treading. He knew he could only kill his own wife. It would be a release. She would be free of her eternal life and finally be herself. Han Shan sighed. His face was filled with wrinkles, his aura diminished. He was an old man, seemingly on the verge of death. His azure robe might conceal his 3,000-year loneliness, but not his age or exhaustion. He had searched for 3,000 years, guilty all that time. However, when he finally found what he was looking for, it was like this. Shaking his head, Han Shan waved his hand. Instantly, the ice surrounding Meng Hao and Xianxia shattered. Xianxia immediately retreated, blood seeping from her mouth. With each step, her face paled. The coldness pressed oppressively on her. The instant Meng Hao's ice statue shattered, the frost soil shot toward him. It transformed into an enormous white vortex that surrounded him. As the vortex spun, the frost soil vanished as it was drawn into Meng Hao's body. The coldness was oppressive, and an earth-type aura rose to the sky. Han Shan's wife, the new bridge soul, glanced over at Meng Hao. Han Shan turned to look. When he saw Meng Hao, he laughed. "It is what it is," he said. "It seems the two of us are bound by karma. Let me bestow a bit more good fortune upon you." With that, he raised his hand and pushed it toward the frost soil land mass. Han Shan's body trembled as a white and blue aura emanated from him and rushed toward the land mass. As the aura spread, Han Shan weakened, his essence drained. He aged further. The blue and white aura merged into the land mass, and instantly the frost soil began to change. It was no longer just white but glowed blue. Its aura was shocking and the coldness exploded. The entire land mass trembled at this ancient aura. It seemed to have existed for eons. It had seen countless forms of life, knew the warmth and coldness of the world, and had experienced life and death. This frost soil land mass, once false, had transformed into the true frost soil of ages past. The white and blue aura was the true essence of the frost soil demon emperor's clone. With this power sent forth, the land mass below was now true frost soil. The land shook as it began to crumble inward and shrink. It became increasingly refined and pure. From above the bridge of immortal treading, one could see this transformation. The frost soil that had covered the entirety of the bridge shrank over mere breaths. In one moment, Meng Hao could see the edges of the land mass. Within a single breath, it shrank to a mass of blue soil only 300 meters wide. The whiteness was gone. It was now pure blue. This was the true frost soil which had given birth to the demon emperor in the ninth mountain. In the blink of an eye, 300 meters became 30, then 3. The dark blue clump shot into the vortex on Meng Hao's right arm. Roaring filled Meng Hao's mind as his body rose into the air. His hair whipped about, and an increasingly intense aura rose from him. Xianxia backed away, her expression shocked. Knowing he absorbed true frost soil now, she was astounded. At this moment, the vortex on Meng Hao's arm solidified into a blue earth character. Instantly, an enormous frost soil landscape manifested behind him. Upon the landscape was a huge tree blazing with fire. Above it, a great golden river, a depiction of metal, wood, earth, and fire. Meng Hao's cultivation base soared, shedding the gold core. His aura merged with the magical image behind him as immense power roared through him. Now, if Su Bai and Chen Mo, those two late nascent soul cultivators, battled Meng Hao, the outcome would be uncertain. "Take my legacy, take my sword, and take my flagon," said Han Shan. "Leave this place. When you can shake this bridge with your cultivation base, don't forget to repay me. If my wife and I are still here when you return, rescue us." Han Shan laughed. He was aged and decrepit, but his will surged, a will that defied heaven and earth. He flicked his sleeve and an azure sword appeared. This sword had been at his side for 3,000 years. Now it became a beam of light that shot toward Meng Hao. He flicked his sleeve again and the alcohol flagon, filled with boundless sword will, flew to Meng Hao. Meng Hao felt his heart stirring. He looked up at Han Shan in a daze. What he saw was Han Shan's back, as he first remembered it, lonely, bleak, and desolate. Han Shan waved his hand, and a cold wind arose. It swept up Meng Hao and the shocked Xianxia, carrying them away. The cold wind was powerful. Neither Meng Hao nor Xianxia could resist it as it carried them away. Despite the force, Meng Hao managed one last look. Han Shan's gentle voice could barely be heard. 3,000 years ago, it was because of you that I refused to become a bridge slave. 3,000 years later, it is because of you that I make the opposite choice. I will accompany you in such a life. What harm is there in that? I will lose my consciousness. I will lose any chance to return. However, as long as I can be with you, neither life nor death are of any consequence. During these 3,000 years, I thought a lot. Legacies and cultivation bases don't really matter. What matters are dreams. Without you by my side, I have no world. You are my everything. I'm willing, I am perfectly happy, to exercise faith. When Han Shan opened his eyes, they shone only with confusion. All of his loneliness and bleakness were gone. His wife stood next to him. The two of them turned and made their way off into the distance. They were followed by millions of bridge slaves, an army of specters, moving further and further away. When will the bridge of immortality reappear like new? Sir, on what day will we again lay eyes on you? This chapter was sponsored by Merc_Clown, Saurabh Bansal, and Alex Talbot. Chapter 474, Therefore You Picked the North. Senior Han Shan, murmured Meng Hao. He had Han Shan's sword, Han Shan's flagon, and on his right arm a totem tattoo made from Han Shan's frost soil. These were physical things. However, deep in Meng Hao's heart existed the image of Han Shan and his wife. That image was not desolate or lonely. Only a husband and a wife, accompanying each other as they walked into the distance. I, Meng Hao, solemnly swear a vow here in the realm of the bridge ruins. If the day arrives when I can shake this bridge of immortal treading, I will repay this kindness. Within the bitterly cold wind, Meng Hao clasped hands, looked back toward the bridge slave specters and bowed deeply. To Meng Hao, his principles demanded that he repay kindness. Kindnesses shown could never be forgotten. Meng Hao continually met people who showed him kindness. If he forgot them, he didn't deserve to be a cultivator. So too with enmities, they must be repaid many times over. I will do everything in my power to repay my benefactors. I will bring tenfold vengeance upon my enemies. If people do not attack me, I will not attack them. But if someone does attack me, that person shall die. This was Meng Hao. In Confucianism, there is a concept of a path of justice that contains two parts. One part involves being kind and tolerating others. The other involves taking action when necessary. After entering the cultivation world, Meng Hao also had his own path. This path had nothing to do with cultivation, but rather personal principles. Meng Hao's principles also contained the concept of justice, a justice with two parts. One was the law of repaying kindnesses. The other was bringing death in response to attacks. Cultivation is about developing confidence. Cultivation is about learning how to conduct oneself. Meng Hao clasped hands and bowed for a long moment. Xianxia suddenly flew away at top speed, emerging from the cold wind and disappearing into the distance. She lifted her right hand, causing a red flower to suddenly appear. She was not attacking Meng Hao. Instead, her flower transformed into a sea of flowers that enveloped a butterfly demon spirit that happened to be flying in this area. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. She laughed as she collected up the butterfly demon spirit, her eyes filled with excitement. Suddenly, another butterfly demon spirit appeared not too far off in the distance. As soon as it realized it had been noticed, it seemed to suddenly be frightened. It flitted its wings and flew off. Jixiang's eyes glittered as she shot pursuit for a moment, but then stopped. This was because Meng Hao had suddenly exploded with dancing sword qi. The threat of the sword qi caused Jixiang to feel quite annoyed. She looked over at Meng Hao. This was not the first time he had done something like this. She frowned, then laughed and sped off, away from the butterfly. Her voice drifted back to Meng Hao. Meng Hao, although our cooperation has come to an end, based on what you now know, if you're interested, then we can come back to this place in 200 years to enter the primordial immortal demon plane. Perhaps you might even learn of a way to rescue Senior Han Shan while you're there. As for that demon spirit, if you want it, I won't fight you over it. Her body flickered and then transformed into a red beam of light that disappeared off into the void. Meng Hao's eyes flickered as he watched Jixiang leave. He did nothing to stop her, nor did he respond. Instead, he himself shot out into the void toward the demon spirit. Jixiang teleported far away in the void. Suddenly, she coughed up blood. Her body trembled and a ghost image of her own face appeared. Shockingly, this image was Zhao Yulin's soul struggling to get free. I have no intention of merging with your soul, precious darling. However, you need to abide by our agreement. I'll borrow your body for only 200 years. 200 years later, I'll give it back to you. Furthermore, I won't borrow your body without offering repayment. I will ensure that you stay at the great circle of the nascent soul stage. With that, she jabbed her finger down onto her forehead. This movement caused Zhao Yulin's soul to suddenly grow weaker. A look of fear appeared and it began to shrink back. Eventually it disappeared. There was no ghost image anymore. I was injured by frost soil, and twice had bitter cold enter my body. Just now, I even circulated quite a bit of my immortal essence in my attempt to get that demon spirit. This Meng Hao is as crafty as a fox and diabolically cruel. If I didn't get out of there, there's no saying that the kid wouldn't actually attack. Jixiang's eyes glittered. She wasn't sure when, but at some point she had actually come to view Meng Hao as a worthy opponent. However, the fact that the curse doesn't affect him will be a great advantage if he helps in the primordial demon immortal plane 200 years from now. My plan to acquire a demon immortal body will be much more likely to succeed. With that, Jixiang slapped her bag of holding to produce the 5 Poisons Tribe Immortality Bridgestone. She crushed it, and instantly her body began to grow blurry. Before long, she was completely gone. Further back in the void, Meng Hao proceeded alone. The frigid wind had disappeared and the coldness of the void crushed down on him. However, to Meng Hao, that coldness felt warm. His earth-type totem was the unparalleled frost soil. Compared to that, the surrounding coldness could be regarded as boiling hot. After his huge success in acquiring the earth-type totem tattoo, Meng Hao's cultivation base had skyrocketed. His speed was now much faster than before. Furthermore, the void could do nothing to impede him. He was quite used to it now. He chased the butterfly for about an hour before catching it and putting it into his bag of holding. With that, he stopped and began to think. 2 demon spirits. One can get the Crow divinity tribes into the Black Lands. As for the second, I'll decide in 200 years when the primordial demon immortal plane opens. His eyes filled with determination, he proceeded onward. As he moved, he pulled out Han Shan's sword. The sword seemed commonplace, completely ordinary. But Meng Hao had seen it slice open heaven and earth, chop through the void, and unleash the shocking aura of a mountain spirit. This is an immortal sword. He ran his hand across the smooth blade and a drone echoed out, containing feelings of grief, farewell, and the hope to reunite. Hearing the drone caused Meng Hao to think about Han Shan. He sighed. Compared to Senior Han Shan, I am tiny and weak. Right now I can't wield you, however you were gifted to me by him. From now on you are my sword. I promised Senior Han Shan that I would save him in the future. Now, I promise you that when I do save him, I will bring you with me. The day that I succeed in rescuing him, I will return you to Senior Han Shan. The droning faded. The azure sword quieted, then transformed into a beam of light that shot back at Meng Hao. He didn't stop it. The glow struck him, causing blood to appear on his forehead. The blood touched the sword, and Meng Hao could sense a connection between them. His eyes glittered as he extended his right hand. The sword's aura rose to the heavens as it shot into the distance. It moved too quickly to see clearly. It shot directly at a 3,000-meter-wide rock approaching. In a blink, it shattered the rock into pieces. A boom echoed, and before the fragments could scatter, the sword shot back to hover before Meng Hao. Meng Hao stared in shock and extended his right hand. The sword slowly shrank to the size of a fingernail. Meng Hao swallowed it, causing it to merge into him. This was now one of Meng Hao's trump cards. If kept in his bag, it would lose the element of surprise. As shattered rock fragments shot at him, Meng Hao pulled out his immortality bridgestone. He crushed it and instantly faded away. The north region of the western desert was rapidly turning into a vast body of water. Violet lakes appeared in the lowest areas. The violet rain poured down in buckets, growing heavier. The sky was dark, no sunlight visible, making it seem like dusk. The scene was oppressive. Coldness spread everywhere, a coldness that could exterminate life. The mountains were deathly silent. No signs of life remained. The western desert north region was devoid of spiritual energy. Rotting beast corpses lay scattered in the rainwater. Off in the distance, a group of about 4,000 or 5,000 people moved rapidly through the air, migrating. They were silent, their faces sallow. Migrating groups like this were common in the western desert north region now. At this moment, a bright beam of light shot through the air with an oppressive aura, moving at high speed and causing loud booming sounds. It seemed matchlessly aggressive. The beam moved toward the migrating tribe members at incredible speed, instantly catching their attention. All looked up at the figure. The 5 nascent soul cultivators looked shocked. Xianxia. He completely slaughtered 7 or 8 tribes in the area recently. He uses the people he kills as blood sacrifices to further his cultivation. If heaven wishes to exterminate our tribe, then all we can do is be cautious. How come we have to run into this damned Xianxia? This approaching beam of light was none other than Xianxia, who Meng Hao had chased in the realm of the bridge ruins. In the midst of the chase, the bridge slaves showed up, giving rise to a huge tempest. Otherwise, the man would have been killed by Meng Hao. His head was small, but he was tall and looked like a rat. His appearance made him instantly recognizable. He flew through midair, a vicious expression on his face. Half a month earlier, he had returned from the realm of the bridge ruins to the same border location where he'd left. He was not pleased with his journey and had developed a thorough fear of Meng Hao. That was why he'd come back early, sighing at his misfortune in meeting Meng Hao. He tried to figure out where Meng Hao came from, fearful of meeting him again. After much thought, he concluded Meng Hao couldn't be from the north region. The tribes there had the weakest cultivation base, and no chosen of heaven had appeared in years. The north region would be most severely affected by the apocalypse, with the greatest collection of migrating tribes. It was suitable for him. Therefore he came north. Chapter 475, Return. Booming sounds echoed as the group scattered. In 2 hours, vicious Xianxia held up 5 severed heads and began his blood sacrifice of the tribe below. The blood sacrifice lasted 2 days. After it, Xianxia waved his hand to collect the spoils. His cultivation base was creeping toward a breakthrough. All I need is to kill a couple dozen thousand more, and I'll break through to late nascent soul stage. I don't know this tribe's name, but they were vicious. Of 4,000 or 5,000 people, all had cultivation bases. They must have left ordinary members to face nature. Xianxia's eyes flickered as he pulled out a jade slip with a detailed map of the western desert north region. I can't provoke the Great 5 Poisons tribe or the Scorching Ice tribe. Without a late nascent soul cultivation base, victory would waste too much of my power. Damn this violet rain. Without blood sacrifices and celestial soil, I'd have run out of spiritual energy and died. Xianxia licked his lips and looked over the jade slip again. 5 Crow divinity tribes. They were the Great Crow Divinity Tribe. They should have sent a representative to the realm of the bridge ruins. They just fought the Great Five Poisons Tribe. This is it. Their numbers are unclear, but they were a great tribe. If they fought the Five Poisons Tribe, they must have resources. Most important, if their representative didn't die in the realm, he probably returned with celestial soil. Maybe I can get more. Eyes glittering ruthlessly, he was about to travel to the Crow Divinity Tribes when his body trembled. Could the Crow Divinity Tribe's representative be that damnable bastard Meng Hao? Could I be that unlucky? After a moment, he laughed at his caution. 23 people went to the realm. Excluding himself, 22 were scattered throughout the western desert. The chances of meeting Meng Hao again were extremely small. Xianxia's eyes filled with cruelty. He shot into the distance, occasionally encountering tribes he slaughtered instantly. His entire path was blood sacrifice. Along the way, his cultivation base grew stronger and his temperament more ruthless. As he felt himself approaching breakthrough, his massacres grew more savage and his speed greater. Soon, he was very close to the 5 Crow Divinity Tribes. I can already smell flesh and blood, said Xianxia, licking his lips as he whistled through the air. Suddenly, a mountain appeared. The bare mountain rose from the center of a large lake. At its peaks, huts had been erected for protection against the rain. This was the Crow Divinity Tribe's location. 5 months had passed since Meng Hao left. Of 2,000 members, only 1,000 remained. Several hundred had died in 5 months, their life forces exterminated. Buried in the mountain with weeping and funeral dirges, everyone knew the mountain would soon sink beneath the sea. Daily, a tribe member was sent down to measure how much the water had risen, calculating time remaining. The water rose less than a meter since yesterday, said the Crow Gloom Tribe Grand Elder, sitting in a hut with the Crow Soldier Tribe Greatfather. The Greatfather's hair was gray, his face sallow, his body emaciated. He sat silently looking out at the endless violet rain. When he spoke, his voice was bitter and low. 5 months. Perhaps the exalted sacred ancient has abandoned us. The thorn rampart vine's power fades. If he left, fine, but he promised he'd return with hope. His voice was hoarse, his expression blank. Hope, said the Crow Gloom Tribe Grand Elder, looking at the other tribe members in the huts. They were silent and gloomy, their eyes open but unseeing. Many had bodies as thin as firewood. None had hope. As spiritual energy faded and violet rain fell harder, life was exterminated. Ordinary tribe members struggled to survive. Even cultivators felt their cultivation bases withering, unable to maintain their stage. He'll come back, said the Greatfather softly, his voice filled with passion. He believed Meng Hao and trusted he would return. The Crow Gloom Tribe Grand Elder let out a soft sigh and was about to speak when his expression flickered. He looked up. At the same moment, the Greatfather lifted his head. Within his withered body, his cultivation base rotated. His dismal eyes shone with an aggressive glow. It wasn't just these two. Behind them, 2 other tribe members, cultivation bases exploded out as they looked up. During 5 months, they were always on guard. 3 groups attacked, 2 were repelled by the thorn rampart vine. But as time passed, the vine weakened and was submerged, disappearing. When the 3rd group came, the tribes were forced to fight. The Greatfather wasted much cultivation base killing an early nascent soul opponent. His action ended the conflict. In this apocalypse, mutual loss and death were equivalent. In a blink, a 4th group attacked. This time, only one person, yet more dangerous in these circumstances. The person approached in a beam of light, emanating a shocking aura carrying the power of peak mid-nascent soul stage, just a hair from late nascent soul. The Greatfather's face flickered with shock. The Crow Gloom Tribe Grand Elder was even more astonished. The 2 behind them turned ashen. Even if the 5 Crow Divinity Tribes went all out, they couldn't protect themselves. When Xianxia saw the 1,000 tribe members on the mountain peak, he frowned. How could there be so few? He said coldly. The small number made the trip seem somewhat wasteful. Nonetheless, he continued toward the tribes. Not many, but no need to waste, he said, eyes glinting cruelly. As he neared, he stretched out his hand and pointed. Immediately, ripples spread out, transforming into a gigantic black mist hand. It shot directly at the mountain. Seeing the black hand approach, the Greatfather shot forward at top speed. In a blink, he was airborne. Roaring, he waved his right hand, causing explosive totemic power. His metal-type totem roared as it shot at the black mist. A boom echoed and the hand collapsed. The Greatfather coughed blood as he tumbled backward. At the mountain peak, more blood came and his body withered. His spiritual energy was nearly dried. As he laughed bitterly, the other tribe members rose, despair filling their eyes. "Your cultivation bases are all withered," said Xianxia arrogantly. "Even at full strength, killing you would be simple. I can't believe the great crow divinity tribe is so weak. Where are your totemic sacred ancients? Where are your magical weapons? You can't handle a single blow. A tribe like this doesn't deserve to exist. Dying in the apocalypse isn't as good as blood sacrifice to advance my cultivation." Xianxia had a special method for dealing with totemic sacred ancients, which was why he'd swept the western desert and exterminated so many tribes. Wu Chen stood among the crowds. His body trembling, he shouted, "When the exalted sacred ancient returns, he will not let you go. Raise a hand against the crow divinity tribes and face the sacred ancient's wrath." His echoing words ignited hope in the eyes of the tribe members. The sacred ancient will definitely return. The sacred ancient will come back with hope. Xianxia laughed scornfully. "Your sacred ancient is coming back, so it abandoned you. Even if it returns, I can seal it and make it watch as I sacrifice you all." He raised his hand again. Ripples spread in 4 directions, transforming into 4 black mist hands. They linked together into a black dragon bursting with killing intent. They shot toward Crow Divinity Mountain. As despair filled the tribe members' faces, 4 tentacles suddenly erupted from the water below. They moved at incredible speed toward the hands. At the same time, thorns spread around the mountain, encircling it. But the weakness and exhaustion of the vines and thorns was obvious. 400 kilometers away from the tribe's mountain, above a rushing river, an area of distortion appeared. Like a tear in the air, it opened into a hole. A figure emerged, green-robed, long black hair whipping in the wind, handsome with an energetic demeanor. It was Meng Hao. He had returned much as he left, teleported back some distance from where he departed. This was normal. Returns were usually within 500 kilometers of departure. Meng Hao rubbed the bridge of his nose, looking around. Having confirmed his position, he sent his spiritual sense out. He immediately sensed the vine and through it saw what was happening at the Crow divinity tribes. Meng Hao's eyes filled with unspeakable, raging anger. When he spoke, his voice was like a freezing wind. His cultivation base exploded, causing the rain nearby to turn to ice. Xianxia. This chapter was sponsored by gentlemen Timofev Seaman and George Chang. Chapter 476, How Could You Be Here? Outside the Crow Divinity Tribe's mountain, explosions filled the air. The thorn rampart spread around the mountain. Vines shot out to fight Xianxia. Amidst the booms, the 4 black mist hands collapsed. Xianxia's eyes glittered, filling with ruthlessness. "So you have a protective treasure. You're worthy of being a former great tribe," he laughed. "Unfortunately, in this violet rain, your vines are like a lamp running low on oil. If I add it to blood sacrifice, the results will be better." A black moon suddenly appeared behind him. The moon radiated darkness, surrounded by seething mist. Xianxia seemed like a devil. His aura roared skyward as he shot toward a vine. As it swept at him, Xianxia licked his lips and pointed. A black moon appeared on his fingertip. When it touched the vine, roaring filled heaven and earth. The vine trembled, then exploded. Viscous fluid sprayed in all directions. The rest of the vines let out shrill cries. Xianxia laughed arrogantly. Emanating potency with a contemptuous expression, he neared the mountain peak. As he closed in, the vines, ignoring injury, moved to defend. The vine was a simple life form. Even fused with the thorn rampart, it was not intelligent, but it never forgot the mission Meng Hao assigned before leaving. Protect the Crow divinity tribes. In its primitive mind, it knew it would accomplish its mission, even if it meant dying the cruelest death. Vines whistled toward Xianxia, who snorted coldly and flicked his sleeve. The black moon appeared, emanating a glow that spread rapidly. As vines touched it, they melted. Anguished screams rang out, causing the 1,000 tribe members to clench their fists. Grief and indignation filled their eyes. They knew that the only reason the vines were dying in battle was to protect them. As the vines were melted by the black glow and the miserable shrieks echoed out, a black beam of light shot from the violet lake beneath the mountain. In the blink of an eye, it pierced through Xianxia's black glow and shot toward his forehead. Xianxia's expression flickered as a profound sense of deadly crisis filled him. Eyes wide, he roared, the waves battering against the beam. Then a black moon appeared again in front of Xianxia. It shot toward the black beam, and when they collided, a huge boom filled the air. The black moon collapsed, and the beam continued toward Xianxia. This black beam was a sharp thorn, different from the others. It emanated a strong life force. This was the main life force essence formed by the amalgamation of the vine and the thorn rampart. Unfortunately, the exterminating power of the violet rain had weakened the vines to a tremendous degree. The same was true of this life force thorn. The fact that it had been blocked twice gave Xianxia enough time to prepare. Even as the thorn shot toward him, he dodged to the side. The sharp thorn cut his cheek as it shot past. Xianxia suffered a flesh wound, but nothing serious. His eyes turned red as a savagery appeared that hadn't been present before. A bloodthirsty glow radiated out as he licked blood from the corner of his mouth. His entire expression radiated killing intent. Any living thing that harms me gets turned into a blood sacrifice. His eyes flickered with a cold glow as he waved his hand toward the violet lake below. Water exploded up with a boom. As the ripples spread, a 30-meter-long vine trunk was wrenched from the water by Xianxia. "So it's you? Well, time to die." He licked his lips and cruelty glowed in his eyes. He raised his left hand, causing a black moon to magically appear. He was about to strike the vine trunk when the Crow Soldier Tribe Greatfather and the other powerful experts of the Crow Divinity Tribes teleported out to block Xianxia. "Screw off," cried Xianxia haughtily. He waved his right hand, causing the Greatfather and the others to tumble backward, blood spraying from their mouths, bodies shaking. Just when the looks of despair appeared on their faces as they realized that they were powerless to fight back, the howl of a wolf rose up. Big Harry, Harry II, and the rest of the Greenwood wolves shot out from a cave in the mountain. Their expressions were listless, but they flew through the air toward Xianxia. A red, winged crocodile and an enormous lizard appeared, along with a flock of black crows and a cloud of green mosquitoes. All looked downcast, their auras weak. Under the continuous onslaught of the violet rain's life-exterminating force and spiritual weakening, they had been seriously injured. Even still, it was without hesitation that they shot out, filling the sky. The sight was shocking, even to Xianxia, whose pupils constricted. However, he quickly sensed the Neo-Demon's aura. Then his expression filled with scorn and cruelty. Shrimp soldiers and crab generals, useless troops, filled with haughtiness and cruelty, Xianxia waved his left hand to pull the vine trunk into the air. Then he shot forward, flashing an incantation with his right hand. Multiple black moons appeared and shot forward. Roaring filled the air. Blood sprayed from Big Harry's mouth, and he was sent tumbling backward. Harry II and the other Greenwood wolves let out miserable cries as they shot backward like kites with their strings cut. The black crows and mosquitoes were sealed by a misty wind. Had they been at peak strength, it might have been different. Now, no matter how they struggled, they couldn't free themselves from the mist. The winged crocodile and the lizard also let out mournful cries. The power of this black moon divine ability sent them tumbling backward, their bodies on the verge of falling apart. Xianxia's laughter filled the air. None of the neo-demons or cultivators could resist him at all. They couldn't even get close to him. The vine trunk, which was floating there in midair, was snatched up by Xianxia. It was now only a hair's breadth away from death. All the members of the Crow Divinity Tribes on the mountaintop had looks of despair on their faces. The Crow Soldier Tribe Greatfather wiped the blood from his mouth and gave a long, bitter sigh. His expression filled with arrogance, Xianxia said, "When Xianxia wants to exterminate a tribe, no one can escape being part of the blood sacrifice." Looking scornfully at the neo-demons and tribe members, his mouth twisted into a cruel smile. He lifted his left hand and slowly clenched it. The vine trunk writhed helplessly as Xianxia clenched his fist. It was clearly moments from exploding. "Die," cried Xianxia, laughing heartily. However, a piercing sound suddenly echoed from the distance. "You die B/TCH, you little rat. Are you trying to get me in trouble with Menghao B/TCH? Damn it, Lord Fifth just went out to get some lunch. You think that means you can wipe this place out?" As the shrill cry echoed, a multicolored streak whistled through the air toward Xianxia's rear end. As it neared, the sound of a ringing bell also could be heard. Xianxia stared in shock, then his face fell. Having no time to crush the vine, he dropped it and let it fly away. An incredible sense of deadly crisis filled him again. Xianxia's body flickered as he fell back. A multicolored blur shot through the air where he had been moments before. Cold sweat broke out on Xianxia's forehead, and his heart filled with dread. He could clearly see that if he hadn't dodged, the multicolored streak would have charged into where his rear end had been. The thought of what might have happened made even ruthless Xianxia gasp. "Damn it, what is that thing?" The multicolored glow materialized into the parrot, who glared at Xianxia. "Bitch, you dare to try to get me in trouble. I'll screw you to death." A bizarre glow appeared in the parrot's eyes as it squawked at Xianxia. Its expression and voice, coupled with its actions, caused Yiqienzi's scalp to grow numb. Shouting, the parrot charged toward Yiqienzi with incredible speed. Yiqienzi gasped and fell back, flashing an incantation gesture with both hands. A black moon appeared in front of him as he attempted to defend himself. A boom filled the air as the parrot slammed through the black moon. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Yiqienzi. As it neared, Yiqienzi saw it turning to aim at his rear end. What is it trying to do? Yiqienzi was scared witless. At this critical moment, his body transformed into mist and reappeared 3,000 meters away. Once again, the parrot's attack found nothing. Immediately, it grew furious. "Hey, you dare to dodge me. Lord Fifth is definitely going to screw you." The parrot's appearance and its actions caused all of the members of the Crow divinity tribes to stare up in shock. Yiqienzi wiped the sweat from his brow. As of this point, he realized that there was more to this tribe than met the eye. It seemed weak, but it had vines and neo-demons, and then this fearsome thing that apparently liked to attack rear ends. Even as Yiqienzi was filled with shock, the parrot, enraged by its two fruitless attacks, let out a mighty squawking howl. "Beloved concubine." As the two words rang out, a cloud mass shot toward them from the distant sky. Within this cloud mass was none other than the enormous Outlander beast. "Outlander!" The Outlander beast's roar shook heaven and earth. Yiqienzi's eyes went wide with astonishment and fear. He was sent tumbling backward, his eyes shining with disbelief. "Damn it, there's an Outlander beast here. Just what tribe is this? They even raise Outlander beasts. I can't stay here. Damn it. If I had known about this, I would never have come. They don't have many people, but they're incredibly difficult to exterminate." Yiqienzi's scalp went numb as he fell back. He transformed into green smoke, his escape art shooting him thousands of meters away in the blink of an eye. The instant his body reappeared, a cold snort echoed off to the side. Meng Hao appeared, having just employed minor teleportation. When Yiqienzi saw Meng Hao, his face filled with shock and he screamed. Since returning from the realm of the bridge ruins, he had never screamed like this. It was filled with terror as his soul trembled. How could you be here?" Chapter 477, Moon. The instant Meng Hao appeared, everyone on the mountain saw him. The Crow soldier Greatfather began to tremble, and excitement shone in his eyes. The other powerful experts next to him were the same. To them, Meng Hao's appearance finally gave them hope. The despair in the other tribe members' hearts was swept away by excitement. "Sacred Ancient." "The exalted Sacred Ancient has returned." "Exalted Sacred Ancient, we offer you respect upon your safe return." The voices of more than 1,000 people called out, seemingly unburdening themselves of the great pressure that had been weighing down on them. It became a roar like that of 10,000 people. They were joined by Big Harry and all the other neo-demons, who after seeing Meng Hao lifted their heads up to the sky and howled with excitement. The sound of it all shook heaven and earth. Yiqienzi's face paled. He stared blankly at Meng Hao, his mind buzzing. Then he screamed and backed away. He didn't notice the parrot approaching with disdain. When the parrot slammed into his rear end, a blood-curdling shriek filled the air. He felt intense pain, unspeakable and unforgettable. Along with it came humiliation that caused Yiqienzi to lift his head and shriek. Even as his voice echoed, the parrot shot back for another round. Scared out of his mind, Yiqienzi transformed into green smoke to flee. He regretted coming to this place deeply. How could he have ever imagined that a tiny tribe like this would be full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons? Damn it, this place has a wicked vine, tons of neo-demons, a perverted parrot, that shocking Outlander beast, and most ridiculous of all, that patriarch Bloodface. His heart filled with sorrow. He was about to cry. He decided to flee and never return to the Western Desert North region. However, as his body turned into green smoke, Meng Hao lifted his right hand. A freezing wind containing frigid soil power erupted. In an instant, Yiqienzi's green smoke froze in midair. His body was forced out of the smoke. Astonishment filled his face as he wondered how his opponent had become so much stronger. He could even nullify the effects of his escape art. As his body was forced out of the smoke, Meng Hao's cold face radiated killing intent. He shot forward, clenched his fist and punched Yiqienzi in the chest. Yiqienzi had no way to avoid the blow. Blood sprayed from his mouth, and the sound of cracking bones came from his chest. With a miserable shriek, he was sent tumbling backward. How could he be so powerful? Yiqienzi was scared out of his mind. A droning sound filled his body as Meng Hao's voice suddenly rang out. "Before, you dared to steal things that belonged to me. I let you get away once. How could I possibly let you do so again today? He charged Xianxia and punched him again. A boom filled the air. Xianxia coughed up blood, his face going pale. Before he could say anything, Meng Hao's fist slammed into him, injuring not just his physical body, but also his nascent soul. Even his totem tattoos seemed on the verge of collapse. At this critical moment, Xianxia let out a piercing howl. His spiritual sense emanated, and the evil magic in his body began to circulate. A black moon appeared on his forehead. As this happened, all of his spiritual sense converged onto the black moon, causing it to rotate. A reflection of the black moon appeared on Meng Hao's forehead as well. Xianxia coughed blood and shouted, "Sense-slaying." The moment the words left his mouth, the inverted image of the moon on Meng Hao's forehead shattered, and an intense power surged into Meng Hao's mind. In response, Meng Hao let out a cold snort. The power was obviously Xianxia's trump card. If Meng Hao hadn't formed his Earth-type totem tattoo, his mind would be reeling. Instead, he recovered. His own spiritual sense was far more powerful than Xianxia's. Backed by the power of 4 of the 5 elements, the effect of Xianxia's attack was easy to dispel. Another fist descended, and Xianxia's body exploded with blood and gore. His shocked nascent soul flew out, surrounded by the protection of the black moon. How could he be so powerful? Why, damn it, he must have seized some blessing in the realm of the bridge ruins. Even as his terrified nascent soul tried to retreat, Meng Hao snatched Xianxia's corpse and placed it in his bag of holding. As Xianxia's nascent soul tried to flee, the Outlander beast arrived. A boom filled the air as it struck out. Xianxia's nascent soul screamed and spit out a mouthful of nascent soul life chi. The nascent soul grew fuzzy and weak. The black moon shield collapsed, and the other protective treasures he had summoned were destroyed. "Despicable," shrieked Xianxia. "You people are despicable. I demand a one-on-one duel." His face twisted with fear as he was surrounded on 3 sides by the Outlander beast, the parrot, and Meng Hao. One-on-one duel. Yeah, right, B_TCH. Lord Fifth always wins by outnumbering the enemy. Who's gonna duel you, B_TCH? How could you be so naive? The parrot squawked as it charged once again in attack. The Outlander beast roared and struck out. As for Meng Hao, he did nothing except for seal off Xianxia's escape route with freezing wind every time he tried to flee. It was at this point that the meat jelly suddenly let out an excited shout. "Don't kill him. I have to convert him. I've been looking for someone as evil as this for years. I've always wanted a challenge like this." The meat jelly's eyes glowed and filled with excitement. "What's your name? Fear not, come. Tell Lord Third your name." A boom filled the air as the Outlander beast struck out again. Xianxia's nascent soul was injured again. More life chi sprayed from his mouth. The nascent soul was incredibly weak at this point, and his eyes were filled with desperation. With an angry cry, he tried to perform a minor teleportation, but even as he did, the air around him froze like ice, blocking the minor teleportation. Next, the parrot charged toward him. A miserable scream rose up into the sky. The scene was tragic beyond compare. Even the members of the Crow divinity tribes were shocked. "Let me go, I was in the wrong. Let me go." Boom, the Outlander slapped out playfully. "Give me a chance, I will. I." The parrot, manly and vigorous, pierced right through him. "I? What's your name? You're not answering me, so you look down on me, despise me. You are simply too evil, you are too immoral, I must convert you, I will convert you. Why won't you say anything?" The meat jelly continued to blabber on. Within about 10 breaths, Xianxia's nascent soul let out miserable shrieks of despair. The parrot, its concubine, and the meat jelly were tormenting him until he was about to collapse. In the end, Xianxia let out a furious roar and chose to self-detonate. However, before he could, the Outlander beast opened its mouth and swallowed him. A faint explosion sounded, after which the Outlander beast opened its mouth and burped out mist. This was the way in which Xianxia was ultimately killed. He was not cut down by Meng Hao, but rather toyed to death by the parrot, Outlander beast, and meat jelly. He died. The parrot seemed to think that it was a pity. I can't believe he died before I was able to convert him." The meat jelly had a pained expression on its face as it sighed. The Outlander beast wore a strange expression as it looked back and forth between the meat jelly and the parrot. It said nothing. Meng Hao turned and headed back toward the mountain, surrounded by his neo-demon horde. He waved his hand, and totemic life force flowed out in all directions, fusing into the neo-beasts and the vine trunk. They began to recover. Meng Hao produced medicinal pills to treat the neo-demon's wounds and strengthen the weakened Crow divinity tribe members, who looked energetic. "Greetings, exalted sacred ancient." More than 1,000 tribe members began to kneel and kowtow to Meng Hao. Even the Crow soldier tribe greatfather kowtowed. When they lifted their heads, their faces were filled with anticipation. They were aware of Meng Hao's goal and looked at him with anxiety. "I've brought back hope," he said, looking around at them. "We will migrate to the Black Lands." The surrounding tribe members gasped and began to tremble. Tears streamed down their faces as they cried out in joy. A few days later, the Crow Divinity tribe's life-saving migration began. With the fall of the violet rain, life force was exterminated and teleportation portals stopped working. Spiritual energy was scant, forcing the Crow Divinity tribes to travel on foot. There was no way for them to fly. Furthermore, ordinary tribe members with no cultivation base remained. That made high-speed travel impossible. For a cultivator to fly from the western desert north region to the Black Lands in the south region would take many years. To walk would take 1,000. There was no time for that. The only way to migrate successfully would be to acquire a flying machine that could carry 1,000 people. They needed a flying machine that could be powered by spirit stones, not the spiritual power of heaven and earth. Only a large flying machine like that could facilitate their migration. Before departing, Meng Hao looked back at the mountains. Upon returning, he hadn't seen the black bat. From what Gula had told him, it had disappeared a few days after he left for the realm of the bridge ruins. As to where it went, nobody knew. "You fled without my permission. Well, I can find you if I wish." Meng Hao looked at the mountains, his eyes glittering. Then he turned and walked away with the Crow Divinity tribes. Note, based on Jen's note at the end of the chapter, it seems that it was around this time that ISSDH hit 1 on Kidian.com's monthly charts. Chapter 478, Soul Search. Most rogue cultivators would not have a large reserve of spirit stones. But to the 5 tribes that once made up the Great Crow Divinity tribe, a tribe which had passed down legacies for many years, well, spirit stones were something they had a lot of. They might not have enough to keep a flying machine running for many years, but it would get them halfway. After the violet rain, spiritual energy became scarce, virtually non-existent. Spirit stones, an expendable resource, became the only way to replenish spiritual energy, and some were wasted. Thankfully, few cultivators in the Crow Divinity tribes meant consumption was reduced significantly. Plenty remained. The main problem now was how to acquire a large flying machine not powered by spiritual energy. Meng Hao looked around thoughtfully at members of the Crow Divinity tribes as they trudged along. Right now, many tribes are migrating through the western desert north region. A treasure like that would certainly be incredibly expensive. It was already the 10th day of the Crow Divinity tribes' migration. These mountains were where the tribes had lived from generation to generation. Most had never left the mountains, save for occasional members who ventured to the western desert and never returned. The rain continued to fall heavily. Everyone, cultivator and ordinary tribe member, had to prevent the rainwater from touching them. Otherwise, their life force would slowly burn away. Even the neo-demons were the same, although they were able to hold out much longer. Any living thing would slowly die if exposed to the rain. The broken thorns from the vines were made into woven rush raincoats, which became essential to the tribe members. The migration included the 1,000 members of the Crow Divinity tribes and Meng Hao's neo-demon horde. Thankfully, the neo-demons could survive inside Meng Hao's bag of holding, easing the journey. That was a special trait of neo-demons. Unfortunately, cultivators could not survive inside a bag of holding. Therefore, the migration journey was difficult and frustrating. The sky was dark and filled with the sound of falling rain. They moved in silence along an endless road. A month later, they entered the mountains. Meng Hao led the way, wearing a woven rush raincoat like everyone else. It draped about him like a cloak. He also wore a wide, conical hat, making his appearance bleak. The wild giant panted as it walked behind Meng Hao. Its massive frame was too big to fit inside a bag of holding, so it had to walk outside. Gula walked next to the wild giant, coughing, his face pale. His life force was dimming, but luckily it showed no signs of extinguishing. However, in this violet rain, he, like the other cultivators, was gradually becoming mortal. One could imagine that before long, they would be cultivators unable to perform magic. At that time, they would be mortals. A black crow appeared, shrinking until it could land on Gula's shoulder. Gula looked at the bird, then said, "There's a tribe that's been following us for 3 days." The Crow Scout tribe greatfather looked behind them. Frowning, he said, "It's most likely a local tribe called the Grand Fusion tribe. They are a mid-sized tribe. The outlander beast, the parrot, and the meat jelly had once again fused into one body. The parrot's voice said, "Do you want Lord Fifth to go screw them?" Meng Hao didn't reply. He continued to walk, pulling out a jade slip, a simple record from Yichenzhi's bag of holding describing the blood sacrifice magic Yichenzhi had cultivated. It also described how to cultivate the Black Moon Totem and his escape art. It detailed a vicious magic known as the blood sacrifice soul search, a ruthless technique that left the victim alive but crippled. Meng Hao had been studying it thoughtfully during their travels, and now understood it well. When the others saw Meng Hao concentrating, they didn't say anything more. They continued to walk for 7 or 8 days until they reached what appeared to be a sea. More precisely, it was an enormous lake at the mountain's edge. Before the rain, it had been an enormous basin filled with neo-demons and lush vegetation. Now, it was only water stretching as far as the eye could see. Meng Hao looked out at the lake for a moment, then turned. "They're here," he said coolly. The others turned with vigilant eyes to stare behind them. The members of the Crow divinity tribe scattered to form a wide space. Their eyes flickered with displeasure, especially the members of the Crow fighter tribe. After Meng Hao's return, he had branded them with his frost soil totem, causing their cultivation bases to advance to their former level. Soon footsteps could be heard, mixed with the sound of grunts and growls. A tribe of roughly 3,000 people appeared, many mounted on fierce beasts resembling lions. They charged across the ground. Among their numbers were 5 nascent soul cultivators, one of whom was in the mid-nascent soul stage. All 5 were covered with totem tattoos, although their faces were wan and thin. Nonetheless, they radiated fierceness as they approached. The 3,000 cultivators came to a stop about 300 meters away to stare darkly at the Crow divinity tribes. The Crow soldier tribe greatfather stepped forward, his eyes gleaming coldly. He had been nearing death before, but after returning, Meng Hao had given him medicinal pills to restore his life force. His voice was cold as he said, "You must be the Grand Fusion tribe. We are the Crow divinity tribe. You've been following us for some time. If you're traveling the same way, please continue." Given that his cultivation base was at the mid-nascent soul stage, the sound of it echoed clearly. No one responded to the Crow soldier tribe greatfather's words. Of their 5 nascent soul cultivators, the one with the mid-nascent soul stage cultivation base was an old man in a black robe, carrying a feng shui compass. After glancing at the compass, he looked up at the crowd in front of him. His gaze settled on Meng Hao, whose cultivation base was obscured. In this man's estimation, the person who was the greatest threat to him was the Crow soldier tribe greatfather. He clenched his jaw, killing intent and greed shining in his eyes. "That guy has it. As for everyone else, do not leave a single one alive." At his words, the tribe members at his side roared as they pulled out spirit stones to absorb spiritual energy. The neo-demons they rode also roared, and the entire group of 3,000 charged toward Meng Hao. The 5 nascent soul cultivators flew forward, using forbidden cultivation power. Meng Hao's eyes flickered as he gave a cold snort. He waved his right hand and frost soil power appeared. A frigid wind blasted out, carrying frost soil. He moved forward with a minor teleportation, reappearing next to one of the early nascent soul stage cultivators. He waved a hand, causing the power of his fire-type totem tattoo to boil out. Struck by both cold and flame, the early nascent soul stage cultivator's body exploded. The sight shocked the entire Grand Fusion tribe, their faces filling with astonishment. They couldn't have predicted this. Meng Hao's attack had exterminated one of their priests. The black-robed old man gasped, his heart starting to pound. However, he had no time to think. He burst toward Meng Hao. The cultivators of the Crow divinity tribes chose this moment to launch their assault. Meng Hao attacked swiftly and violently. He teleported, reappearing in front of the black-robed old man. His right hand lifted, and a sea of flame roared out. Then he lowered his hand, and the golden rain of his metal-type tattoo appeared. As it shot forward, the black-robed old man performed an incantation with both hands. A 9-headed liger appeared in front of him, roaring as it shot toward Meng Hao. Meng Hao gave another cold snort and punched with his right hand. A boom echoed as the 9-headed liger exploded into pieces. A cold wind rushed out as Meng Hao appeared again in front of the black-robed old man. The old man's face fell. He pulled out a spirit stone to replenish his spiritual energy, shooting backward at the same time. Meng Hao's eyes flickered and he pointed with his finger. The black-robed man's face filled with astonishment as he realized that his body and his cultivation base had been sealed. Meng Hao calmly took the feng shui compass from the man's hand. He looked it over and his face grew dark. On the feng shui compass was a bright dot, indicating Meng Hao's location. "Where did you get this thing?" asked Meng Hao coolly. The black-robed old man had regained mobility. Panting, but not speaking a word, he retreated. "Not going to tell me? Well, I'll just keep it." With that, he slapped his bag of holding. His neo-demon horde emerged. Other than the neo-demons, leave none of them alive. Thousands of neo-demons blotted out the sky and shot forward, whereupon miserable shrieks filled the air. In this migration, it was a situation of if you don't die, then I don't live. There was no room for benevolence. If they showed mercy, the Crow divinity tribes would be destroyed. When Meng Hao decided to protect the Crow divinity tribes, his heart had hardened toward any enemy attacking them. Since they had chosen to attack, they would die. As he strode forward, his body turned into green smoke using Yichenzhi's escape art. He appeared in front of the black-robed old man. He lifted his hand, and the lotus sword formation appeared. After returning from the realm of the bridge ruins, the power of time had returned to its normal level. However, the world's exterminating power and spiritual scarcity now constantly attacked Cultivator's life force. The power of the lotus sword formation spread, causing 60 years to fade from the black-robed old man. His face immediately fell, and his mind reeled. His life force was already weak enough as it was. For a 60-year cycle worth of time to vanish made him even older than he had been before. He was also shocked to discover that, while the amount of spiritual energy he consumed when employing divine abilities could not be replenished fast enough via spirit stones, this young man against whom he was matched hadn't used even a single spirit stone at all. It was with incredible speed that Meng Hao neared him. His right hand lifted up, and suddenly a strange, mysterious glow appeared that resembled a black moon. Even as the old man's life force was vanishing, the moon came to rest on the top of his head. "Soul Surge!" A blood-curdling scream could be heard coming from the old man's mouth. His body shook violently, and just as he was trying to struggle, the lotus sword formation once again spun, sucking away yet another 60-year cycle of life. The old man's eyes went wide as he felt his memories slipping away like flowing water as Meng Hao looked them over. Meng Hao's face suddenly grew dark and icy. This chapter was sponsored by Dennis Liu, Hong Nguyen, Michael Harrison, and Anonymous. Chapter 479, Seeking to Perish. Within the memories of the black-robed old man, Meng Hao saw many complicated things. They were his recollections of his life. Even as the man screamed and trembled, a death aura slowly spreading out from him, Meng Hao found what he was looking for. The Feng Shui compass was one of many distributed throughout the Western Desert by the Heavenly Court Alliance. Because the Crow divinity tribes had not left their mountains during the apocalypse, they were not up to date on everything that was happening in the outside world, and were unaware of this aspect. More than half of the tribes in the Western Desert had such a Feng Shui compass. It served only one purpose. It would reveal the location of any demon spirits within the area. Because Meng Hao had 2 demon spirits in his bag of holding, his position was visible on the compass. Having detected a demon spirit, the Grand Fusion tribe came with killing intent, hoping to slaughter them and take the demon spirit. Meng Hao's face was grim. He flicked his sleeve and the lotus sword formation rotated. A shrill scream could be heard as the old man's body grew ancient. He wanted to evade, but after the soul search, his mind had been severely damaged. Even his nascent soul was weak and on the verge of collapse. As Meng Hao turned to walk off, a banging sound could be heard as the man's body turned directly into ash. Body and spirit were destroyed underneath the time power of the lotus sword formation. The battle didn't last long. With Meng Hao's powerful cultivation base, it didn't matter that the Grand Fusion tribe had spirit stones to counter the effects of the waning spiritual energy. Their 3,000 tribe members quickly turned the ground into a river of blood. Meng Hao felt no sympathy for them whatsoever. He knew that if his own cultivation base were not strong enough, then the members of the Crow divinity tribes, including himself, would be the ones to form a river of blood. The bags of holding and other resources of the Grand Fusion tribe became fuel to keep the Crow divinity tribes going for longer. As for the thousands of neo-demons, thanks to Meng Hao's demonic qi, they capitulated and became part of his neo-demon horde. After assigning more than 1,000 neo-demons as mounts for the tribe members, they crossed the lake and continued their migration. However, dark clouds filled Meng Hao's heart. Because of the matter of the Feng Shui compasses, he knew that their migration would now be even more difficult. No matter how he tried to hide or seal the demon spirits, he was incapable of preventing the compass from detecting them. Thankfully, the memories of the black-robed old man had revealed to Meng Hao the various announcements made by the Black Land's Heavenly Court Alliance during the time that he was in the realm of the bridge ruins. For example, he knew that, as for the great tribes with spirit-severing experts, they were welcomed into the Black Lands with no stipulations whatsoever. Because of that, most great tribes naturally didn't care too much about demon spirits. Even those that did care somewhat did not care so much that they would spare no price to get one. The tribes that need the demon spirits the most are the mid-sized tribes, or tribes like the Five Poisons tribe, who don't have a spirit-severing expert. Meng Hao was lost in thought regarding these matters as they crossed the lake and continued onward. Time flowed by. 3 months later, the Crow divinity tribes were now far from the mountains that had been their home. Meng Hao's neo-demon horde once again numbered 20,000. In Meng Hao's estimation, the neo-demon horde was one of the biggest factors in his ability to protect the Crow divinity tribes. Right now, the Crow divinity tribes were not capable of engaging in battle with the powerful mid-sized tribes on their own. When it came to dealing with the great tribes, their biggest advantage was that Meng Hao was a demon sealer, a status which placed him above even a grand dragoneer. Demonic chi allowed him to attract and control more neo-demons. This often made his ability to change the course of a battle even stronger. The 3 months of travel were anything but peaceful. After the Grand Fusion tribe, they encountered 3 more mid-sized tribes. Without exception, all of those tribes came after them with bloodshot eyes and killing intent, determined to seize a demon spirit. After 3 battles, 3 tribes were exterminated. Meng Hao's neo-demon horde reached 20,000 in number, and the Crow divinity tribes did not lose a single member. In each of the 3 battles, it was Meng Hao and the neo-demons who did the fighting. "Grow strong through battle," said Meng Hao, looking back at the distant mountains. They were now in a wide plain. "By continuous battle, we acquire more resources and more neo-demons. If one day I can build my horde up to 100,000 neo-demons, then we would be able to shake even great tribes." His eyes glittered with determination. The Crow Soldier Tribe Greatfather, the Crow Gloom Grand Elder, Gu La, and the others all saw Meng Hao's decisiveness, and it caused them to sigh with relief. To them, Meng Hao was not just a sacred ancient, but also the sole hope of the Crow divinity tribes. "Esteemed sacred ancient," said the Crow Soldier Tribe Greatfather with an anxious frown, "if we continue on this path, it will only be a few months before we reach the lands of the mid-sized Eternal Universe tribe. Their totem is a blue-faced ghoul, and their tribe members are cruel and savage. There is no way to know if they are still there. If we want to avoid them, we can make a detour, but that will take us into the lands of the Five Poisons tribe." "There's no need for detours," said Meng Hao coolly. His eyes shone with killing intent. "If the Eternal Universe tribe is still there and has malicious intentions, I need more neo-demons to strengthen my horde." On this road of migration, Meng Hao had long since grown used to killing. "So," said the Crow Gloom Grand Elder, his eyes shining with a fierce glow. "Proceed onward," replied Meng Hao calmly. His decisions were the decisions of the tribe. Originally, there had been more than 1,000 members of the 5 Crow divinity tribes. However, during recent battles, hundreds of enemies had surrendered, opting to become slaves in order to save their own lives. The tribe, which now numbered nearly 2,000 members, continued onward in formation. Time passed. 2 months later, they faced a river of violet rainwater. Further off in what had once been a flat plain was a crudely constructed city. The city wasn't extremely large, but seemed capable of housing over 10,000 people. It was made from rocks and dirt which were covered with fading magical symbols. In the very middle of the city were 9 enormous statues. The statues, all clustered together, had vicious-looking faces like ghouls. This was none other than the Eternal Universe tribe. They were a mid-sized tribe, but this was the Western Desert North region. The tribe had experienced quite a few internal conflicts as they tried to decide whether or not to migrate. In the end, they had chosen to send a vanguard up ahead, leaving some members of the tribe behind to decide later whether or not to migrate. At the moment, the Eternal Universe tribe's Greatfather, High Priest, Grand Elder, and other important members were standing on the city wall, staring excitedly off into the distance. "Are you sure?" growled the Greatfather. "Absolutely sure," replied the High Priest, who held a feng shui compass in his hand. A bright dot could be seen on its surface. "They're very close. This migrating tribe is most likely the Crow divinity tribe, and they have a demon spirit. According to the scouts, they are about 2,000 strong. Some of that number includes ordinary tribe members. They also have about 1,000 neo-demons. They have one mid-nascent soul cultivator and two of the early nascent soul stage. The rest are core formation or lower. According to the intelligence we gathered regarding their war with the Five Poisons tribe, they lost all of their totemic sacred ancients, which is why they are in such a state of deep decline. Considering that the spiritual energy has become so scarce, their road will end here in death. The Great Father's eyes shone with a bright light. Heaven will not exterminate our eternal universe tribe. Such a fine gift has been delivered right up to us. Notify the rest of the tribe. We attack in full force. After we get that demon spirit, we will leave this place no matter the cost. We will meet up with the vanguard force and go to the Black Lands. The priest and the others around him all looked very excited. The nearly 10,000 members of the Eternal Universe tribe emerged out onto the plain, filled with the desire to slay Meng Hao and the Crow divinity tribes and take their demon spirit. Meanwhile, across the plain was a bleak area which at one time had been filled with poison. These were the lands of the Five Poisons tribe, a place where outsiders never entered. The Five Poisons tribe had long since chosen to migrate. However, it was not the entire tribe that did so. Only 4 of the branches of the tribe had left. The Scorpion branch had chosen to stay behind. At this moment, the Scorpion branch's high priest held a feng shui compass in his hand. For a long moment, he silently looked at the dot representing a demon spirit. We need to think of a way to notify the migrating branches that a demon spirit has appeared. If they can come up with a way to rob it, excellent. Unfortunately, our Scorpion branch, he shook his head. So, the Crow divinity tribes left their mountains after the war and even managed to get a demon spirit. It doesn't matter who chooses to tangle with them. Our Scorpion branch has already decided to die here in their ancestral land. There's no need to step into turbid waters. Meng Hao and the Crow divinity tribes traveled on for 7 days. Suddenly, Meng Hao's eyes glittered. His expression was calm as he slapped his bag of holding. Immediately, the vine trunk appeared and burrowed down into the ground. Moments later, thorns shot up from the soil, completely encircling the 2,000 members of the Crow divinity tribes. They spread out to connect up above, forming a dome. It was like an upside-down bowl, completely protecting the tribe inside. All of it took only a moment to accomplish as, up ahead, a black cloud mass could be seen. Within the cloud were tens of thousands of neo-demons. Bright beams of light were thousands of cultivators. The ground shook as thousands of cultivators rode neo-demons to follow. Everything trembled and the sky grew dark. The whole time, the violet rain continued to fall. No words were exchanged. The incoming 8,000 cultivators whistled through the air. The tens of thousands of neo-demons let out roars that spread out in all directions. He thinks he alone can hinder our army of tens of thousands. He overestimates his power. Eternal Universe tribe cultivators, hear my command. Slaughter all of these people. Do not leave a single one alive. Roaring filled the sky as the army charged into battle. 4 nascent soul cultivators shot toward Meng Hao at top speed, filled with killing intent. This chapter was sponsored by Abel Nunes, Ng Shan and Jerry Bartlett. Meng Hao's expression was as calm as ever as he faced up against nearly 10,000 cultivators and tens of thousands of neo-demons. Behind him, the thorn rampart covered the 2,000 members of the Crow divinity tribes like a dome. He took a deep breath and then pointed his hand toward the ground. I've been waiting for you for a while now, he said coolly. Righteous bestowal. Instantly, this land which was cut off from spiritual energy suddenly seethed with demonic chi. As Meng Hao waved his hand, the demonic chi exploded out. The demonic chi instantly caused the approaching neo-demons to begin to tremble. Their expressions were that of fear as they suddenly stopped moving and began to emit plaintive shrieks. The sudden change caused the expressions of the aggressive, violent members of the Eternal Universe tribe to immediately change. This was the first time that Meng Hao had unhesitatingly unleashed all the power of the demonic chi he had at his disposal. This was a power that did not belong to grand dragoneers, but to demon sealers. This was a truly momentous heavenly power. Cultivators could not sense this chi, but to the neo-demons it couldn't be clearer. What they saw was Meng Hao, seething with shocking demonic chi. The chi soared up into the sky. Even the violet rain seemed to be distorted by it. Meng Hao was the center of a storm of demonic chi that burst out in all directions. In the world that only the neo-demons could see, demonic chi roared up from Meng Hao, transforming into a massive figure. This was a figure composed completely of demonic chi, and it looked like Meng Hao. As of this moment, Meng Hao did not appear to them to be a cultivator, but rather a greater demon of heaven and earth. This demon could shake the world and had monstrous demonic chi. It was like a king who arrived and made any land he stepped on part of his domain. The neo-demons in the horde were shaking so badly that even their souls trembled. Suddenly, memories within their blood were awakened. The neo-demons suddenly began to cry out. The sounds of their cries were filled with reverence and allegiance. They submitted before the master of the neo-demons, before an aura of a greater demon, an aura that was just like that of their own ancestors. The tens of thousands of neo-demons of the Eternal Universe tribe, regardless of their level, were all roaring continuously, their expressions filled with veneration and respect. They were no longer charging across the ground, but rather prostrating themselves on it. The neo-demons who had been flying in the sky also fell to the ground. Regardless of how their masters tried to control them, they all acknowledged their allegiance to Meng Hao, without exception. This scene caused the members of the Eternal Universe tribe to pant with shock. Before they even had time to react, Meng Hao waved his hand, causing the shocking demonic chi to surge toward each and every one of the neo-demons. As the demonic chi entered their bodies, their roars grew frenzied and their bodies grew larger and fiercer. Their auras were now many times more powerful than before. All of them even began to show signs of ancestral awakening. One of the neo-demons in the horde was a blue-faced ghoul neo-demon. It lifted its head to the sky to roar. As of this moment, it no longer walked along on all fours, but rather stood up on two legs. Its blue, hairless body emanated shocking ripples. Its eyes became bright red, and it grew nearly 10 meters taller. Even more shocking, a horn suddenly grew out of its forehead. The spiraling horn crackled with arcing sparks of lightning, and it emanated an astonishing aura. The appearance of this neo-demon very closely resembled the 9 statues back in the Eternal Universe tribe's city. Its appearance immediately caused the members of the Eternal Universe tribe to be filled with shock. Their hearts trembled and cries of astonishment filled the air. Sacred Ancient, it looks exactly like the Sacred Ancient. Who is this person? He causes our neo-demons to mutate and go out of control. Amidst the commotion, Meng Hao's calm, bizarre voice echoed out, "From now on you follow me, to battle." In response, the tens of thousands of neo-demons roared, shaking themselves loose from their masters and turning on them with vicious expressions. It seemed they really were switching sides. At the same time, Meng Hao waved his arm, causing his own 20,000 neo-demons to suddenly appear, howling to the sky. They instantly shot toward the Eternal Universe tribe members. Nearly 60,000 neo-demons all absorbed demonic chi, which caused a variety of mutations. They quickly surrounded the 8,000 trembling cultivators, all of whom had completely lost their will to fight. One can well imagine the end result of the battle. Meng Hao's face was calm as he watched the savage slaughter erupt. Booms and screams filled the air. At the same time, the 5 nascent soul cultivators shot toward him, emanating killing intent. These people were all of the early nascent soul stage. To deal with people like that, Meng Hao didn't even need to don the blood immortal mask anymore. His hand flashed with an incantation gesture and he pointed forward. Instantly, the power of frost soil shot out, followed by a raging sea of flames, a gigantic tree and a golden rain. Totems of 4 of the 5 elements exploded out as he pointed. Before the 5 approaching nascent soul cultivators could even get near to Meng Hao, their bodies trembled under the attack of his 4 great totems. Blood sprayed from their mouths and their faces filled with astonishment. It was at this point that 2 roaring figures suddenly shot through the air toward Meng Hao, sending out ripples in all directions. Any neo-demon that got in their way was transformed into a cloud of blood. None were capable of even causing pause for these 2 figures. It was 2 old men, filled with intense killing intent as they closed in on Meng Hao. "He's a grand dragoneer. Kill him and the neo-demon horde will disperse." As they neared, Meng Hao slipped on the blood immortal mask. Instantly, blood chi exploded up, completely changing his aura. Radiating killing intent, his body flickered as he turned into a black moon. A wisp of smoke could be seen as he suddenly appeared directly in front of the 2 old men. For him to appear in this way was bizarre and shocking. They almost couldn't believe what they were seeing with their own eyes, and their hearts filled with foreboding. As the faces of the old men fell, Meng Hao casually clenched his right hand into a fist and then launched a blow. Boom! One of the old men was sent tumbling backward. He quickly summoned 7 or 8 magical treasures to try to defend himself, but they were crushed, the fragments of which slammed into his chest. Blood sprayed from his mouth and the totem tattoos on his body flickered. At the same time, Meng Hao turned. Black moons flashed within his eyes and suddenly, a black moon like an eye magically appeared on his forehead as he looked at the other old man. This old man urgently employed divine abilities and was instantly surrounded by ghouls. This was actually the Great Father of the Eternal Universe tribe. The man Meng Hao had struck moments ago was the High Priest. When the Great Father's eyes met Meng Hao's, his expression flickered, and his mind filled with roaring as suddenly, the reflection of a black moon appeared on his own face. He felt stabbing pain in his sea of perception, as if a great invisible blade were stabbing into it. He let out a miserable scream. Unable to attack, mind filled with buzzing as he shot backward in retreat. This black moon eye was none other than Xianxia's life-saving treasure. However, in Meng Hao's hands its might far exceeded what it had in the hands of Xianxia. Although Meng Hao did not cultivate the blood sacrifice magic, after putting on the blood immortal mask, the power of his blood qi far exceeded that of Xianxia's. He needed no blood sacrifices. Every time he killed a person, the redness of the mask would grow deeper. Blood-curdling screams could be heard continuously, as 60,000 neo-demons ruthlessly attacked and killed the besieged Eternal Universe tribe. What shocked the Eternal Universe tribe most was that within the neo-demon horde was a flock of extremely bizarre black crows. They didn't attack anyone, but rather flew around, seemingly absorbing something. However, it didn't take long before the corpses on the ground began to twitch and rise to their feet. The dead came back to life and stood up. Within the eyes of each corpse could be seen the image of a crow. Immediately, the corpses charged toward their former tribe members in attack. Most astonishing of all was that these corpses still had cultivation bases. Although they could only use their cultivation bases instinctively, these corpses did not fear death. Even if all they had left was a head, they would still try to bite their opponent. The battlefield instantly grew even more brutal. The situation quickly grew hopeless, causing some of the Eternal Universe tribe members to bite their tongues and spit out blood. After performing quick incantations, they pointed up to the sky. Exalted Sacred Ancient, help us. The High Priest, the 5 nascent soul cultivators, and the rest of the tribe members all bit their tongues and spit out blood. One by one they roared up into the sky. Exalted Sacred Ancient, help us. The voices of thousands of tribe members joined together, transforming into a thunderous sound that rolled out in waves, shaking heaven and earth. Suddenly, a roar could be heard from the sky off in the distance. It was a black cloud, within which was a living ghoul. Its skin was blue, and it was fully 300 meters in length. It had a spiraling horn, and its body was covered with scales. This neo-demon's sacred ancient's aura shot out explosively, and when it appeared, it stared toward Meng Hao with its red eyes. "You an aura similar to mine," the creature roared, and then shot its claw-like hand directly toward Meng Hao. At the same time that the ghoul roared, another roar could be heard. Outlander. It was none other than the Outlander beast. It suddenly shot through the air to slam into the ghoul. Amidst the resulting boom, the parrot flapped its wings and let out a shriek. Its eyes glowed with a look of disgust and detestation. "Damn it, no fur or feathers, you. Why don't you have any fur or feathers? Beloved concubine put it to death. This damned bastard has no fur or feathers, that's the most heinous of crimes. Show no mercy. You dare to not have fur or feathers." In response to being slammed into by the Outlander beast, the ghoul roared and fell back. The Outlander beast whistled through the air to slam into it again. The parrot was off to the side, continuing to call out excitedly. On the ground, Meng Hao chuckled. He had been waiting for quite some time for the Eternal Universe tribe to come. How could he not have made certain preparations? He lifted his right hand to perform an incantation gesture, and suddenly, a blood-colored face magically appeared around him. It spread out and then shot forward in attack. The attack instantly slammed into the several nascent soul cultivators, causing blood to spray from their mouths. They retreated, faces filled with astonishment. It was at this point that the thorns suddenly began to spread apart. From within, the members of the Crow divinity tribes as well as the several hundred slaves all emerged, shouting battle cries. At this point, Meng Hao knew that the Eternal Universe tribe was completely defeated. Chapter 481, An Old Enemy. The battle lasted for several long hours. The Eternal Universe tribe Greatfather perished and the High Priest was destroyed. Of the remaining 5 nascent soul cultivators, 3 died and 2 attempted to flee. They didn't get very far before Meng Hao caught up with them and exterminated them. He had no other choice. The only chance they had to live was to surrender, change totems, and exercise faith in Meng Hao by becoming a slave member of the Crow divinity tribes. Meng Hao could well imagine that if he didn't kill those who chose instead to flee, news of the matter of the demon spirit would quickly travel far and wide. They were in a bad enough situation as it was. If news spread even farther, then it would be even more difficult to successfully migrate. Only about 2,000 members of the Eternal Universe tribe remained from the original force of 7 or 8,000. These members chose to surrender and pay allegiance to Meng Hao, becoming slave members of the Crow divinity tribes. Of the 60,000 neo-demons, 50,000 survived the battle. They blotted out the sky as they surrounded Meng Hao, who stood there, hair whipping about, his face filled with killing intent. He truly looked bizarre in these circumstances. Several days later, the Crow divinity tribes, now 4,000 members strong, arrived at the city formerly controlled by the Eternal Universe tribe. They stripped the city of anything useful and then proceeded on their way. They headed south, following a path that would eventually lead them out of the western desert north region. The violet rain only continued to fall harder and harder. The corrosive properties of the rain, its ability to exterminate life force, also increased. More and more lakes could be seen covering the land. From the look of it, it wouldn't be long before the lakes joined together to become a sea. Time flashed by. 2 years passed. During the 2 years, the Crow divinity tribes continued on relentlessly toward the south. They crossed huge lakes and made their way through mountain ranges. During the journey, they faced battles 7 times. These 7 battles caused the Crow divinity tribes to completely rise to prominence. Their numbers grew from 4,000 to over 10,000. Only 1,000 of those were original members of the 5 Crow divinity tribes. The other cultivators were captured in battle and then chose to pledge allegiance to the Crow divinity, to exercise faith in Meng Hao, and to become slaves. Their totems were forcibly changed. Prostrating in worship to Meng Hao, they received either a metal, wood, fire, or earth totem and called Meng Hao sacred ancient. Through the successive battles, Meng Hao's neo-demon horde gradually increased in size. It now numbered 80,000. As far as nascent soul cultivators went, before they had only 3. Now there were 7, an increase of 4. They were cultivators from other tribes who had chosen to surrender. To these cultivators who chose to join the Crow divinity tribes, it was actually a chance to survive through the apocalypse. If the Crow divinity tribes managed to make it to the Black Lands, then they too would be able to enter and survive. The shocking sight of the neo-demon horde soaring through the sky made it so that the glory of the Crow divinity tribes had now been restored to the level it had been back in the days of the 5 tribes. Now that more people were joining and resources were more plentiful, Meng Hao began to concoct medicinal pills. Because his medicinal pills could restore spiritual energy, they became an essential part of life in the Crow divinity tribes. It was also the reason that the more than 10,000 cultivators could continue to endure the violet rain. After all, despite their abundance of resources, they still had not been able to acquire a flying machine. Large-scale flying magical items were considerably expensive, and not something that mid-sized tribes would possess. Only great tribes would have such magical items. Meng Hao was hopeful of being able to acquire a flying machine. However, during the 2 years, his face only continued to grow grimmer and grimmer. He was well aware that because of the apocalypse, many tribes in the western desert north were in the process of migrating. That was why they had run into the 7 other tribes that they battled with. However, as they continued to travel, they would eventually leave the north region. When that happened, they would be facing up against even more tribes, many of whom would have feng shui compasses. Once the demon spirit showed up on a feng shui compass, it would give rise to shocking violence. The only way to resolve situations like that was by killing. Meng Hao's eyes shone with a cold light. During the 2 years, he had become completely accustomed to carrying out massacres. If the Crow divinity tribes cannot make it all the way to the Black Lands, it will be because I have done everything in my power but failed. At that point, my debt to the Golden Crow will be paid. I will prove myself worthy of the blessings I have received from the Crow divinity tribes. Meng Hao was already doing everything he could to fulfill his moral obligations. Regardless of whether or not he was able to achieve the pinnacle of his goal, there was now little more that he could do. During the 2 years in which Meng Hao observed the violet rain falling, he was slowly beginning to attain bits of enlightenment. He was able to use the ever-burning flame to give birth to his fire-type totem, and the framework of the frost soil to create his earth-type totem. As for his water-type totem, perhaps he really could use the violet rain to acquire it. After all, the violet rain contained the power of an apocalypse. Such water-type power could exterminate life and cut off spiritual energy. It was extraordinary to the extreme. If he could control that power and use it to create a water-type totem tattoo, then Meng Hao would not only have completed the great circle of the five elements, but would have done so with five elements that could shake heaven and earth. Metal came from the golden crow, a medicinal pill from ancient times that became a demon, something exceedingly rare in heaven and earth. Wood came from a powerful expert from the ninth sea who collapsed upon reaching South Heaven. Its consciousness was reborn in the form of a tree, the greenwood tree. Fire came from the East Pill ever-burning flame. It was a fire that could never be extinguished, that would exist eternally. Its origin was a mystery, such that even Meng Hao wasn't sure where it came from. Earth came from the power of the frost soil and the frost soil demon emperor, a legendary soil which, according to the legends in the ninth mountain, was magically birthed from a patch of dirt, and eventually became unique and unmatched. Water, the violet rain apocalypse exterminates life and cuts off spiritual energy, leaving everything desolate. Meng Hao's eyes shone with a strange light. 10,000 cultivators of the tribe followed him in this apocalyptic migration. The speed with which they traveled was significantly faster than 2 years before. After all of the people who surrendered and offered allegiance were cultivators, not ordinary tribe members. As for the original group of 1,000 Crow Divinity tribe members, the few hundred ordinary tribe members were assisted by others and didn't influence the general speed of the migration. Not many people noticed the rise of the Crow Divinity tribes. After all, everyone was anxious to carry out their own migrations and didn't pay too much attention to what was happening elsewhere. Furthermore, because of the chaos of the apocalypse, all tribes were very vigilant when it came to dealing with outsiders. However, there was one tribe that did notice the 5 Crow Divinity tribes. That tribe was none other than the old enemy of the Crow Divinity tribes, the 5 Poisons tribe. On the border of the Western Desert North region, the 5 Poisons tribe had set up temporary shelters. In the central pavilion sat the tribe's priests, who numbered 13 in total. In the center position were 2 old men. The first was the greatfather of the 5 Poisons tribe. The other was the man who had led the great army in an attempt to exterminate the 5 Crow Divinity tribes, the high priest. He broke the silence in the tent with his raspy voice. "We are certain that the Crow Divinity tribes have a demon spirit." Conversations immediately broke out within the central pavilion. "We have already contacted the Great Cloud Sky tribe. They have a spirit-severing patriarch which qualifies them to enter the Black Lands. If we choose to join them then, from now on, we will lose the right to govern ourselves and will become an auxiliary branch of their tribe. The exalted sacred ancients are reluctant to agree to such an arrangement. If we choose not to join the Great Cloud Sky tribe, then the only hope we have to survive is to exterminate the Crow Divinity tribes and seize their demon spirit. Furthermore, our only chance is to do so before news of this demon spirit spreads to other areas outside the Western Desert North region." That's right. Once the word spreads out, it will reach the central region, where large quantities of tribes are congregating. The further south one goes, the more tribes there are to be found. Once the Crow Divinity tribes enter the central region, the fact that they have a demon spirit will be impossible to hide. If we acquire the demon spirit, we could use it to make a deal with the Great Cloud Sky tribe. We could offer it to them in exchange for the chance of autonomy if we join them. As the conversations continued, the Greatfather sat there taciturnly. "In accord with our previous agreement, the emissary from the Cloud Sky tribe will be here in 2 months. However, according to our secret inquiries, the Crow Divinity tribes are now over 10,000 in number. They also have tens of thousands of neo-demons. Furthermore, their Grand Dragoneer Meng Hao is worth 1,000 regular cultivators. Such a war will be no simple thing. They're nothing but a disorderly mob. If we attack with all our might, we can definitely wipe out the Crow Divinity tribes within 3 days and seize the demon spirit before anyone else can." Finally, the Greatfather cleared his throat, instantly causing the pavilion to grow quiet. All gazes shifted to fall upon him. "The sacred ancients are not willing to join another great tribe. Neither are we. Therefore, prepare for war. We will fight the Crow Divinity tribes and seize their demon spirit. That demon spirit is the key to our future survival." His eyes filled with determination as he spoke. Afterwards, all of the priests kowtowed deeply to him. "As for that Grand Dragoneer Meng Hao, the tribe still has a drop of heavenly blood. Use the blood to fuse the spirits of the tens of thousands of tribe members and slay Meng Hao." The high priest stared in shock and said, "Heavenly blood, that's—" "I've already made up my mind. The Crow Divinity Tribe's Grand Dragoneer Meng Hao will die as soon as we make our assault." The Great Father's voice was resolute. The others sat there silently for a moment, then began to nod. Soon thereafter, the Five Poisons Tribe's temporary residence area buzzed as 50,000 tribe members prostrated themselves around 5 statues. If you could look at the scene from up above, the Five Poisons Tribe looked like a giant petal with 5 flowers. In the very center were the Great Father and the others. Suddenly, a drop of blood appeared in the hand of the Great Father, which he flung up into the sky. At the same time, the tens of thousands of prostrating tribe members began to chant an incantation. The sound of it was extremely bizarre as it floated up into the air. The sky dimmed, and the violet rain in the area seemed to begin to undulate. "Spirit fusion," cried the Great Father. Immediately, 50,000 cultivators bit their tongues and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood immediately shot up into the air to fuse together with the violet drop of blood which had been thrown up earlier. The mass of blood grew larger and larger. In the blink of an eye, it was a few dozen meters wide. Then it began to shrink down until it was barely 2 meters tall and bore the semblance of a human. Soon a face appeared. Its eyes opened, and a bloody glow rose up into the sky. It looked around and, seemingly sensing the will of the surrounding 50,000 cultivators, turned its head and then shot off into the distance. This chapter was sponsored by Tony Kirsch, Christophe Salmi, and Carter B. Chapter 482, Blood of the Jai Clan. After the figure of blood shot off into the distance, the members of the Great Five Poisons tribe rose to their feet. The tribe happened to have a gigantic magical item capable of flight. It was a colossal, extremely lifelike viper. It was roughly 3,000 meters long and emanated pressure in all directions. This flying magical item was actually the transmogrified corpse of a sacred ancient which had perished many years in the past. The Five Poisons tribe paid an exorbitant price to the Great Heavens Work tribe to use their skill to transform the corpse into the flying magical item. Normally speaking, its capacity was several thousand people. However, in their fervor to slaughter the Crow Divinity tribes, the Five Poisons tribe spared no amount of spirit stones, and even ignored any possible damage it might cause, to overload it with more than 30,000 cultivators. They, along with the Great Father and 9 priests, immediately headed in the direction they knew Meng Hao to be. Among their number was Xianxia. After returning from the realm of the bridge ruins, she had maintained a low profile and concealed her cultivation base. No one had picked up on anything out of the ordinary. At the moment, she stood there, eyes glittering, her brow slightly furrowed. "I never imagined that this Five Poisons tribe would have a drop of blood of the Jai clan. The blood chi is viscous. It seems to be from a powerful expert of the Jai clan from ancient times. It has grown weak over the years, to the point where the power of the bloodline won't even spread out. That must be why the Jai clan is unaware that some of their ancestral blood is on the loose. Even still, it is still immortal blood. Well, it still won't be sufficient to kill Meng Hao." Eyes flickering, she maintained her silence. The giant viper flew through the air for a few days. Eventually, it reached a lake, which it quickly crossed. The Five Poisons tribe Greatfather sat there cross-legged atop the giant viper. "I can sense that the heavenly blood is already nearing its target," he said. "It will go in for the kill tonight. Since the Crow Divinity tribe's Grand Dragoneer will die, we must make top speed and arrive in less than a day." With that, he closed his eyes. That night the sky was dark and there was no moon. Everything was pitch black. The Crow Divinity tribes were resting, having erected simple tents which were organized in concentric rings. Regarding the miscellaneous affairs of the tribe, the Great Father of the Crow Soldier tribe had recently been elected to serve as the Crow Divinity tribe Great Father. Various rituals were performed which the other nascent soul cultivators also attended. During the past 2 years, the Crow Divinity tribe had become a well-oiled machine. At the moment, Meng Hao sat cross-legged in his own tent, which was located in the very center of the encampment, an indication of the venerated position he occupied. Outside of the tent, Crow Divinity tribe cultivators stood guard day and night. Currently, his eyes were closed, and he held an alcohol flagon in his right hand. Throughout the 2 years, he had kept Han Shan's flagon close at hand. Inside was an unending supply of alcohol. Although drinking it did not give him any dancing sword chi, it left him with a warm feeling inside that kept him quite comfortable despite the violent rain. He couldn't drink too much, though. At the most, he would drink 3 small mouthfuls per day. Sat there cross-legged, his eyes closed. His attention was currently focused inside the blood-colored mask, on Jai 19, who was still bound by the flag of 3 streamers. Whenever he had time these past years, Meng Hao would take the time to study him. The 4 deadly wooden swords were kept stabbed into him the entire time. Despite Jai 19's raving and cursing, his cultivation base was incapable of restoring itself. It was completely restricted by Meng Hao's wooden swords. Next to Jai 19 was the Li clan patriarch, who sat there rubbing his hands together excitedly. His body was covered with crackling lightning that danced back and forth. After experiencing the heavenly tribulation those years ago, he was almost completely transformed into a soul of lightning. In compliance with Meng Hao's requirements, he had turned into a sort of jailer, responsible for keeping an eye on Jai 19. Every time Meng Hao came to torment Jai 19, the Li clan patriarch would get extremely excited. He would even offer bits of advice to Meng Hao to help him transform Jai 19 into a soul of lightning. As far as Jai 19 was concerned, all of that was not the worst of the situation. The worst was that during the 2 years, the meat jelly had taken a strong interest in him. Every few days it would come in and try to convert him. Jai 19 was on the verge of collapse. Every time the meat jelly came to try to convert him, the Li clan patriarch would get even more excited, and his face would be covered with a sinister smile. Tell me, how does one use the karma of the Jai clan? If you tell me, I'll keep the meat jelly away for an entire month. What do you say? Meng Hao spoke slowly and methodically, but all he got in return from Jai 19 was raving and cursing. Meng Hao's face began to grow colder. His cultivation base was not weak like it had been all those years ago. He had already reached the point that he was strong enough to kill this weakened Jai 19. Right now, his eyes flickered with coldness for a moment before turning calm again. He was just about to go call for the meat jelly when suddenly, his body completely disappeared. Simultaneously, back in the tent, a fissure suddenly opened up in the air in front of seated Meng Hao. As soon as the fissure opened, a blood-colored hand stretched out from within, completely silent and undetectable by anyone. This hand was very strange looking. It had no prints on the fingers or palm, and in the very center of the palm, tens of thousands of magical faces could be seen. This bizarre hand immediately shot toward Meng Hao, extending its finger to in an attempt to tap him on the forehead. When the blood-colored hand was only about 7 inches away from Meng Hao's forehead, his eyes snapped open. A profound sense of deadly crisis filled him, wrapping up his mind. He instantly moved backward, but the blood-colored finger followed at the same speed. As it did, a blood-colored arm and then a body emerged from the fissure. As Meng Hao retreated, he hit the wall of the tent. His eyes flickered as metal, wood, water, and earth-type totems magically appeared in front of him, slamming into the blood-colored finger. A boom rang out, shaking everything and echoing out into the silent night. The tent instantly exploded into bits as Meng Hao shot out from within. The more than 10,000 shocked members of the Crow divinity tribe all began to emerge from their tents. When they looked over, they saw their sacred ancient, Meng Hao, shooting through the air in retreat. Pursuing him was a blood-colored figure which emanated a bloody glow. Its finger was only 7 inches away from Meng Hao, blocked by 4 great totems, which prevented it from moving any closer. Meng Hao's face flickered as he retreated. The blood-colored mask instantly appeared. When he donned the mask, a bloody glow shot out of Meng Hao to rise up into the air. A gigantic face appeared which shot toward the blood-colored figure. A rumbling boom could be heard as the blood-colored figure pierced directly through the face. Now, it was not 7 inches away from Meng Hao, but 5. What is this thing? Thought Meng Hao, his pupils constricting. At this crucial moment, an azure glow suddenly appeared in his eyes. He opened his mouth, causing an azure immortal's sword to fly out. It shot like lightning to slam into the blood-colored figure. A boom could be heard as the speeding sword slashed into the figure. Suddenly, a sound could be heard that resembled tens of thousands of voices all screaming at the same time. The blood-colored figure instantly exploded into countless fragments. Meng Hao saw tens of thousands of magical faces twisting and shattering. As the boom echoed out, the Crow Divinity Tribe members down below looked up with anxious expressions. When they saw the blood-colored figure finally collapse, they heaved sighs of relief. Meng Hao floated there, his expression grim. That thing showed up far too unexpectedly. So strange. It wanted to kill me, which would then cause the cultivation bases of the entire Crow Divinity Tribe to fall. Wait, something else must be going on. No matter what tribe it is that wanted me dead, they would not pass up an opportunity to attack after my death. They would definitely follow up an attack. That means the Crow Divinity Tribe is still in danger. Having reached this conclusion, Meng Hao's face flickered. He looked off into the night sky and was just about to summon his neo-demon horde when the grave danger he had predicted appeared. His eyes narrowed as his body transformed into a black moon, which then shot forward in a wisp of green smoke. Right behind him in midair, countless dots of blood suddenly began to form back together into a blood-colored figure. The bloody glow was a bit weaker this time, but the feeling Meng Hao got was that it was purer. The sense of deadly crisis he felt was even stronger now. The blood-colored flickered as it suddenly shrank down into a single, dark drop of blood. The drop of blood instantly caused Meng Hao to begin to breathe heavily. Soul blood, that's a drop of soul blood. The soul blood turned into a streaking line as it shot toward Meng Hao with indescribable speed. As it did, an incredible, overwhelming aura emanated out. At the same time, the feeling of karma could also be sensed within the blood. It was in this instant that inside the blood-colored mask, the flag of three streamers suddenly began to tremble. It emanated a feeling of hope, and an aura that suggested it had suddenly encountered its archenemy. As for Jai 19, a roaring filled his body, and his face filled with disbelief. Ancestral aura, it's ancient, extremely ancient, maybe even more ancient than the Jai clan itself. This is impossible. What generation does this patriarchal blood come from? Whose blood is it? Jai clan blood, thought Meng Hao. His eyes went wide as he realized that all his divine abilities, all his magical techniques, and all his totems were useless against this blood. Even using the green smoke escape art, he wasn't fast enough to evade it. In the blink of an eye, it was upon him. Meng Hao didn't even have time to use the dancing sword qi. The only thing he had time to do in the moment just before the blood reached him was wave his hand. Immediately 80,000 neo-demons emerged. Upon Meng Hao's order, they shot down to protect the Crow divinity tribe. He just had time to accomplish this. Then, the blood hit his forehead, filling him with roaring pain. It was at this time that Meng Hao roared, "Agarwood!" Instantly, the power of the Agarwood exploded out from within Meng Hao, fighting back against the power of the blood drop. It was unclear exactly what was happening, but the blood was incapable of killing Meng Hao. After hitting him, the boundless might of the Agarwood expanded out, enveloping Meng Hao. It was in this exact moment that the five poison tribes' gigantic viper could be seen up in the sky, whistling through the air. Tens of thousands of five poisons tribe cultivators transformed into beams of colorful light that shot down toward the ground. They were joined by tens of thousands of neo-demons which were under the control of a handful of five poisons tribe dragoneers. In addition, powerful nascent soul cultivators teleported down, filled with determination to eradicate the Crow divinity tribe. Off in the distance, the air rippled as the five poisons tribe's totemic sacred ancients, with the exception of the spider and scorpion, appeared. In the blink of an eye, the 1,000 Crow divinity conclave tribe members recognized who these people were, the five poisons tribe. Instantly, their eyes turned red. When you face up against your archenemy, you won't rest until they are dead. Chapter 483, I shall seal death. Kill them. More than 1,000 Crow divinity conclave tribe members' eyes blazed red. The former Crow soldier tribe Greatfather, now Greatfather of the entire Crow divinity tribe, along with Wu Chen, Wu Ling, and all who had fought in the bloody war, let out roars of fury. Killing intent erupted from their eyes as past enmity blazed forth. They shot forward, totems materializing. Booms filled the air. Behind them, more than 10,000 other Crow divinity tribe members charged into battle. The Crow divinity tribe had grown strong through 2 years of ceaseless migration and combat. They had matured in strength, both body and heart. Surrender members who had come to believe in Meng Hao benefited from his totems and medicinal pills, their faith deepening. They had hope now. Their old tribes were gone. The Crow divinity tribe was all they had. After 2 years of constant victories, they looked forward to entering the Black Lands. Their hope burned bright. The battle erupted. The Crow divinity tribe did not hesitate. More than 10,000 cultivators and 80,000 neo-demons charged forward, and the slaughter began. No words were exchanged. The five poisons tribe and Crow divinity tribe were long-standing enemies. The Violet Rain apocalypse had interrupted their enmity. Without that war, the Crow divinity tribe would never have declined. They would have migrated from the western desert north already. The five poisons tribe had lost the scorpion branch, leaving them without a spider and scorpion among their sacred ancients. With 2 of the 5 poisons gone, the blow was catastrophic. The Violet Rain had forced their migration, weakening them further, complications they couldn't afford. This drove their hunger to annihilate the Crow divinity tribe. Shocking booms, heavy casualties mounted. Crow divinity tribe members self-detonated, a frenzy that echoed years of past fighting. The Five Poisons tribe fought with equal madness. This was not invasion, this was survival. Even their cultivators began to self-detonate. The Crow divinity tribe had 7 nascent soul cultivators. The Five Poisons tribe had more than 10 priests. But the Crow divinity tribe's strength lay in their neo-demons, 80,000 of them, with high-level creatures matching nascent soul power. The tribes were evenly matched. The Crow divinity tribe Greatfather faced the Five Poisons tribe high priest. Their battle shook heaven and earth. He was not a match in raw cultivation base, but he had burned his life force to increase his power temporarily, barely holding his own against the high priest. His goal was simply to hold the high priest at bay. The Five Poisons tribe's sacred ancients lacked a spider and scorpion, but their viper, toad, and centipede emanated explosive pressure. Before the apocalypse they would have been astonishing, but the violet rain and past totemic sealing had weakened them greatly. Their power still exceeded the nascent soul stage, yet barely matched the outlander beast, the parrot, and the meat jelly. As battle raged, the Crow divinity tribe found themselves at a disadvantage in both leadership and numbers, nearly being crushed. Only Meng Hao's 80,000 neo-demons kept them from collapse. Yet it was clear they could not hold on long. In the middle of the battlefield, a bizarre 300-meter empty area stood untouchable. At its center was an enormous rippling blood sphere. Roars emanated from it. Someone inside was struggling to break free. The Jai clan blood, transformed by the Agarwood's power, had become a seal. Instead of attacking Meng Hao, it trapped him. "Kill them," roared the Crow divinity tribe. "Press on, the sacred ancient will break free." To them, Meng Hao was their sacred ancient, a god. With him, all dangers could be overcome. They believed in him utterly. They needed only endure. He would break free from the sphere and lead them to victory over the Five Poisons tribe. The Five Poisons tribe Greatfather's eyes glittered. At the late nascent soul stage, he snorted coldly and charged, death in his wake. Any Crow divinity tribe member blocking him exploded. His body became a beam of light toward the 300-meter area. No one could stop him. As he neared, he flashed an incantation with both hands, sending an attack toward the blood sphere. This technique, a divine ability, could penetrate the sphere. He would kill Meng Hao and take the demon's spirit. Moments ago, roars echoed within the blood-colored sphere. Meng Hao's face was grim, surrounded by rippling light that sealed him in the center like a gigantic wall. He threw magical technique after divine ability at the wall. The noise was deafening, but the wall remained unharmed. He had no way to know what was happening outside. Just before being sealed, he had seen the Five Poisons tribe approaching. He knew this battle was disaster for the Crow divinity tribe. Worry gnawed at him. A brief sealing would be nothing, but if time stretched on, they could not hold out against the Five Poisons tribe. The Five Poisons tribe had planned well. Their goal was clear: eradicate the Crow divinity tribe and seize their demon spirit. In 2 years of battle, they had never faced danger like this. The blood-colored wall contracted, then expanded. 3 strands bored through and transformed into a gigantic viper, centipede, and toad. The 3 poisons materialized and let out piercing cries, charging toward Meng Hao. Each creature bore the image of an old man on its body. The Five Poisons tribe Greatfather, outside the seal. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. He waved his hand, unleashing 4 of the 5 elements. A gale-force wind swept the poisons. The viper broke apart and vanished. A cold snort. His body cracked as he surged forward like a fiend. His fist descended, the toad shrieked and exploded. The centipede twisted, shooting toward him like lightning. Meng Hao spat out a mouthful of alcohol qi. The qi enveloped the centipede like a mist. Its body withered, it shrieked. A mark like a black moon appeared on Meng Hao's forehead. He employed the evil magic, the moon flickering as it branded onto the centipede, using it to attack the Five Poisons tribe Greatfather connected to it. The Black Moon's spiritual sense attack erupted forth. Outside the seal, the Five Poisons tribe Greatfather flashed an incantation with both hands, his expression vicious and filled with killing intent. His face flickered as the viper died. Instinctively, he backed away. Before he could move, shock filled his expression as Meng Hao's fist shattered the toad. His eyes widened. Not good. He moved to retreat, his hand preparing to sever his connection to the centipede. Before he could act, a black moon mark appeared on his forehead. Pain like lightning flooded through him. It felt like an invisible blade stabbing into his sea of perception. Blood sprayed from his mouth as he tumbled backward. He severed the connection to the centipede. Once severed, the Greatfather coughed more blood. His face paled in shock. His cultivation base is so powerful, he thought, panting. Intense ferocity blazed in his eyes. Fortunately, I told the heavenly blood to seal him if it couldn't kill him. Unsealed, he would cost us a heavy price. He must not escape that seal. The demon spirit is surely on him. We must keep him sealed while we slaughter the Crow divinity tribe. Then we will use all our power to destroy him, body and soul. A vicious smile twisted the Greatfather's lips. He no longer tried to attack through the seal. Instead, he added further seals atop it, determined to keep Meng Hao sealed inside. This chapter was sponsored by Rune Mahler and Omar Hamid. Chapter 484, Fuse the Blood of Jai. As the battle raged, it became clear the Crow divinity tribe was losing. Casualties mounted, both among the tribe and the neo-demons. The Five Poisons tribe paid a price, but not as heavy. The Crow divinity tribe forces showed signs of collapse under the fierce pressure. Within the blood-colored seal, Meng Hao exhausted his options. Minor teleportation, magical items, even the flag of 3 streamers could not dent it. He tried the Lotus Time formation, the 3 wooden swords, Han Shan's immortal sword. Based on his calculations, breaking through would take 3 days. Only one option remained, the dancing sword chi. His eyes turned red as he condensed alcohol chi. This blood contains the power of karma. It must be blood from an ancient Jai clan patriarch. If this drop still holds such power, how strong was this person alive? His mind trembled as alcohol chi swept out, the dancing sword chi congealing within him. He had no other method, but even the dancing sword chi might not break him free. Worse, the Crow divinity tribe could not hold out much longer. He took a deep breath, about to unleash the dancing sword chi, when he looked at the blood-colored wall. He stared at the rippling blood and felt a tremor run through him. Blood, blood, lightning coursed through his mind. An audacious, perhaps insane idea suddenly took shape. The idea made him gasp and hesitate about the dancing sword chi. Soul blood, Jai clan soul blood. I have 1 drop from that Jai clan quasi-array cultivator 1. Meng Hao killed Jai Hongdong way back in chapter 306. With this, that's 2. I have Jai 19 sealed in the blood-colored mask. If I extract his soul blood, I have 3 generations of Jai clan blood. Using the blood immortal magic, I can form a blood clone. 3 generations form a blood clone. 9 generations make a blood divinity, which possesses the power of ancestral awakening. The manifestation of powerful Jai clan experts could appear. I could wield the strength of one of their immortals. He began to pant. The idea exploded through his mind. This was a golden opportunity. Missing it would be nearly impossible to replicate. This blood was extraordinary. It had an incredible background. I don't need to break the blood seal. I can use it to form a Jai clan blood clone. Bright light filled his eyes. I need blood from Jai 19. Decisiveness settled in his gaze. He pushed his hand onto the blood-colored mask, sending his spiritual sense inside. He materialized before Jai 19. Jai 19 looked weak, but his eyes glowed with strange light. He sensed an ancient aura from the outside world, a Jai clan ancestor's will. Who is it? He wondered. Impossible, so ancient. How could such ancient ancestral blood exist? It exceeds our clan's history. Who could it be? Shaken, Jai 19 did not notice Meng Hao's arrival. Meng Hao materialized with a vicious expression, his right hand pressing down onto Jai 19's forehead without hesitation. A ferocious expression twisted Jai 19's face. Before he could struggle, the aura of the Lotus Sword formation burst from Meng Hao, entering the mask and approaching him. You may struggle if you wish, Meng Hao said grimly. I no longer need information from you. I want a drop of soul blood. Struggle, refuse, fight back, all is futile. Cooperate and I take the blood and leave. Resist and I will exterminate your soul and take it by force. He closed his eyes and rotated his cultivation base. 4 great totems appeared. He channeled the blood immortal magic entirely toward extracting Jai 19's soul blood. The aura of the Lotus Sword formation neared. Time's power began to rotate. To ensure success, Meng Hao even called out to the sleeping blood mastiff. The mastiff slept, but over the years Meng Hao had sensed it would soon awaken. Jai 19's face fell. He heard the killing intent in Meng Hao's voice. He spoke truth. His mind trembled. How could he comply? But the power of time neared and his face flickered. The flag of 3 streamers tightened around him. He panted as the Mastiff's aura approached, filled with spirit-severing power. Jai 19 felt Meng Hao's decisiveness and sudden grave crisis seized him. Meng Hao could kill him, he simply chose not to yet. Going against him meant death in an instant. Sensing Meng Hao's determination, Jai 19 began to waver. As Meng Hao forced the soul blood from Jai 19, the battle between the Crow Divinity Tribe and the 5 Poisons Tribe reached its climax. The Outlander beast could not match the 3 totemic sacred ancients. Even with the parrot and meat jelly, it was injured and weakening. It still roared, fighting back against them, blocking their passage. In midair, the Crow Divinity Tribe's nascent soul elders were pale, coughing blood from serious wounds. They were lamps running out of oil. The rest of the tribe fought in bitter combat. Casualties mounted as both sides clashed. Self-detonations boomed everywhere. The Neo-Demons were in dire straits. Big Harry was severely injured. The wild giant coughed blood. Gula's aura was barely a strand. The Great Father had burned nearly all his life force. His body emanated death, yet he fought to restrain the High Priest. Exalted Sacred Ancient, we cannot hold much longer. Exalted Sacred Ancient, break through that seal. Exalted Sacred Ancient. Unspoken prayers, words from the tribe members' hearts containing their will. They merged into a power of will. As the power reverberated out, Meng Hao opened his eyes inside the seal. A drop of soul blood flew from the mask into his palm. His face was pale. Extracting the soul blood had not been easy. Had he not grown far stronger since capturing Jai 19, it would have been nearly impossible. Still, he was exhausted as if battling for days against a powerful foe. But there was no time to rest. He waved his right hand, and another drop of soul blood appeared. Blood he had acquired from the Jai clan quasi-array chosen outside the Rebirth Cave that year. With the blood in the seal, he now had 3 drops. He took a deep breath and began the incantation gesture with both hands, employing the blood immortal magic to form a blood clone. Merge, he growled. The 2 drops fused and shot into the blood-colored wall. All the drops shared a common origin. As they fused, Meng Hao crossed his legs and closed his eyes, performing continuous incantations. Beads of sweat poured down his face. His hands moved faster, sealing marks streaming out. The blood-colored seal around him began to shrink. Shocking screams of rage emanated from the seal. The battlefield shook. The 5 Poisons Tribe cultivators' faces fell. Even the 3 sacred ancients looked astonished. The Crow Divinity Tribe members were instantly invigorated. Tens of thousands watched as bizarre ripples covered the blood sphere's surface. The 5 Poisons Tribe Greatfather's heart filled with inexplicable fear. A very bad feeling took hold. With a roar, he performed a 2-handed incantation to reinforce the seal. It was no use. The blood sphere rapidly shrank from 30 meters to 15. As it did, 20,000 distorted faces appeared on its surface, the spirits that the 5 Poisons Tribe members had merged with heavenly blood to control its will. Rumbling sounded as 10,000 faces were expelled. The sphere shrank further to 10 meters. A shocking purity appeared within. Then a horrifying aura blasted out. This aura vastly exceeded Meng Hao's previous blood clones. It shook heaven and earth. The entire sky turned red as if something inhuman were about to exist. The intensity exceeded the spirit-severing stage, indescribable, causing gasps of astonishment. The 5 Poisons Tribe experts gasped. The spirits of the 5 Poisons Tribe cultivators were being expelled from the sphere. The blood was no longer under their control. Thunder-like roars rolled in all directions, shaking cultivators, neo-demons, and sacred ancients alike. As faces flickered in astonishment, another roar sounded. Another 10,000 5 Poisons Tribe spirits were expelled. A fearsome aura rose into the sky. Everything grew dim, clouds swept away. The world became a blood-colored hell. He must not emerge, roared the 5 Poisons Tribe Greatfather. He shot forward to prevent Meng Hao's escape. Blood sprayed from the High Priest's mouth as he broke from the Crow Divinity Greatfather. Face filled with fear, he shot forward to assist. Chapter 485, Blood Clone is Born. An aura shocked even the 3 totemic sacred ancients of the 5 Poisons clan as it blazed from the blood sphere. They went all out, breaking past the seal that was the Outlander beast, and moved to strengthen the blood sphere seal themselves. We must not allow him out, do not let him out. The rest of the 5 Poisons Tribe's priests shot toward the shrinking sphere, injured but driven by fear. 5 broke through and bolstered the ceiling. 7 nascent soul cultivators, and 3 totemic sacred ancients poured their power into the seal. The surrounding Crow divinity tribe members surged forward, desperately trying to break through. The 5 poisons tribe fought back. The intensity of battle spiked. Despite all their power focused on the seal, the sphere continued to shrink. Soon it was only 3 meters wide. Nearly all 5 poisons tribe spirits had been forced out. The magical faces dissipated with expressions of torment. A horrifying aura exploded from the sphere, suffocating the 7 nascent soul cultivators. Their faces paled as it slammed into them. They coughed blood. The 3 sacred ancients' faces filled with unprecedented fear and shock. Their bodies trembled. All 5 poisons tribe spirits vanished from the sphere. In a blink, all consciousness within it was replaced by the blood immortal's magic. It shrank into the form of a person. That person bore Meng Hao's semblance. "Kill him," roared the 5 poisons tribe greatfather, seemingly on the verge of madness. He abandoned sealing and unleashed deadly divine abilities at the blood-colored figure. The others followed. The 3 sacred ancients attacked. Booms filled the air, yet the figure didn't react. The greatfather's face filled with astonishment. This Meng Hao refined the heavenly blood. He's actually refining it into a creature of blood. Impossible. That heavenly blood was acquired by an ancestor by fluke. Its power is fearsome beyond measure. How could a cultivator fuse it? Throughout the years, all who tried died. We could only control it. The greatfather's mind reeled in shock. Worse, their tribe's prized treasure, their secret weapon, had been refined successfully. They had handed their precious weapon as a gift. Vexation seized them. This was the critical moment of refinement. Meng Hao felt this blood clone was completely different from his previous ones. They were fireflies. This was the bright moon. This Jai clan blood clone is this powerful. Its power far exceeded his imagination. He sensed faint signs that as he continued, the blood's will was slowly awakening. The blood immortal magic forced out bloodline power concealed within blood. The more ancient the blood, the purer the bloodline, the more powerful the clone. He took a deep breath. He needed to find something to act as the clone's core. An indestructible core meant an indestructible clone. His past blood clones, crude things refined from meat jelly skin, had been useful. But this blood clone's fearsome power was beyond what blood immortal magic texts described. Even the blood immortal had never anticipated this. Never created a clone like this Jai clan blood clone. The blood immortal had looked down on ordinary Jai clan members, focusing on direct descendants, blood. Yet blood clones from direct descendant blood would pale against what was emerging. One drop was from a Jai clan chosen. Another was from ancient Jai 19. The final drop, which determined the clone's power, had an origin even Jai 19 couldn't discern. He knew only that it came from primordial times, as powerful as an original ancestor's blood. That final drop made this blood clone different. With 6 more drops fused into it, Meng Hao could form a complete blood divinity. Then ancestral awakening's power would unleash that mysterious Jai clan ancestor. Then he might recognize this person and determine his true identity. The 5 poisons tribes' peak power unleashed against the figure. The blood-colored form surrounding Meng Hao writhed bizarrely, yet nothing could stop its full formation. The blood figure refined slowly. Meng Hao's features became clearer. A bloody glow suddenly extended like water from it. The greatfather's face fell. He sensed a shocking aura held back by the blood-colored figure. "Hold nothing back. Exterminate him," he bellowed. He flashed an incantation with both hands and spat blood. His body withered, but a 5-colored mist roiled toward Meng Hao. The high priest's face flickered as he flashed an incantation. His body's totems manifested into an amalgamation of all 5 poison creatures. It charged toward Meng Hao. 5 other nascent soul cultivators unleashed their most powerful divine abilities. The 3 sacred ancients' bodies shrank to a meter or 2 long, refined and pure. They sensed the bloody glow's shocking power. It could constrain and crush even them. They felt an instinctive premonition. They must destroy it before it fully appeared. Once the glow took shape, their 3 forms would be crushed like dried reeds. It was instinct from their souls and blood. A fearsome intuition. But as their attacks descended, the bloody glow surrounding Meng Hao shrank to a red dot on his forehead. Meng Hao's eyes snapped open. The glowing dot flew out, emitting a shocking high-pitched howl. Sound waves roared out. Seals shattered in all directions. The dot transformed into a bloody beam of light that shot toward the viper's sacred ancient. The viper recoiled, astonishment and despair on its face. A tremor from its very soul washed over it like floodwaters. Faced with this beam, it lost all power to fight back, all confidence. The bloody beam moved with indescribable speed, slamming through the viper's sacred ancient. Its body turned pale white as its essence, life force, blood, everything, was sucked away by the bloody figure. This was heavenly might. If it wanted you dead, you died. This blood clone was a Jai clan blood clone, and the Jai clan was the heavens of the ninth mountain and sea. If it wanted everything from you, resistance was futile. To the Jai clan, any non-Jai person was a heretic. This sacred ancient came from the ancient, immortal demon sect, a sect the Jai clan had been forced to eradicate. The sacred ancient's death thundered through the five poisons clan hearts. The great father, high priest, all faces fell. Impossible. Sacred ancient, absorbed. The viper's corpse fell. 10,000 five poisons tribe members coughed blood and wailed. Their totems faded, their cultivation bases dropped. More than 10 priests coughed blood, trembling in disbelief. The sacred ancient perished. A strange, shocking sound rang out as the beam swept through, something being swallowed. Everyone, even the two remaining sacred ancients, ceased all attack and fell back. A blood-colored face appeared around Meng Hao. Rumbling sounded. He fell back a few paces, then used minor teleportation to appear in the distance, charging into the five poisons tribe. "Blood clone," he said coldly. "Continue to feed." Killing intent flickered in his eyes. The beam emitted a shout, then materialized into a figure. It looked exactly like Meng Hao, but with a bloody glow and bright red eyes. It flickered at incredible speed toward the two remaining sacred ancients. They fell back instinctively, but they could not outpace the Jai clan blood clone. "Neo-demons," Meng Hao cried, his voice echoing. "I am your demon patriarch. Today, slaughter to your heart's content." 40,000 neo-demons remained. Nearly half had been killed. But now those 40,000 lifted their heads and roared, shaking the heavens. Boundless demonic chi rushed toward Meng Hao and spread to the neo-demons. The five poisons tribe's neo-demons trembled and whined in submission. The five poisons tribe cultivators fell into chaos. "Exercise faith in me, tribe members who worship me. I am your totemic sacred ancient. Those with faith in me have my totems. The five poisons tribe is our archenemy. It is time to settle our differences." He waved his sleeve and a greenwood tree appeared. Flames roared into the sky. Golden rain spread. Frigid soil froze everything. The remaining Crow Divinity tribe members' eyes glowed red. With madness, they charged the terrified five poisons tribe members. Meng Hao's eyes glinted with harshness. His voice echoed like thunder splitting heaven and earth. "Kill them." This chapter was sponsored Adrian Marder, Alexander Kubiak, and Anon. Chapter 486, Leave None Alive. The Jai clan blood clone pursued the two great totemic sacred ancients. They fled frantically. The five poisons tribe's morale shattered. At the same time, Meng Hao's 40,000 neo-demons roared as they absorbed his thick demonic chi. All began to mutate, growing fiercer as they screamed toward the five poisons tribe cultivators. More than 1,000 corpses on the ground rose to their feet. Upon each head, an illusory crow appeared. These crow automatons' eyes glowed gray as they flew into the battle. Booms echoed as the two groups of neo-demons clashed. The battle raged at fever pitch. The thousands of Crow Divinity tribe members were mostly wounded, but it didn't matter. Eyes red, they charged with madness. Original members or new pledges of the past 2 years all exerted every bit of cultivation base power. They knew whichever side lost had no survivors. There was no opportunity for surrender. Five poisons and Crow Divinity were destined enemies. Whichever side lost would be completely wiped out. This was extermination. Complete extermination. As slaughter continued, Meng Hao moved. Killing intent burned deep. The seal would have been unbreakable without the blood, immortal magic, and Jai clan soul blood. The five poisons tribe had planned to annihilate the Crow Divinity tribe. His desire for vengeance had reached its peak. "Leave none alive. Accept no surrender." His eyes glinted coldly. He shot forward toward the nascent soul priests. His speed was incredible as he transformed into a black moon and green smoke. The five poisons tribe greatfather's face paled white. Meng Hao's escape had struck him like an iron hammer. Then came the blood-colored figure, which had sucked dry a sacred ancient in moments. All of this stupefied the five poisons tribe cultivators, draining their faces of color. Today decides if the tribe survives or perishes. The greatfather laughed bitterly. His eyes filled with reckless abandon. He ignited his cultivation base. the aura of a late nascent soul exploding out as he charged. The high priest's eyes flickered with coldness as he joined the attack. A massive roar sounded as the three prepared to collide. Meng Hao, in black moon and green smoke, shot forward between the Great Father and High Priest. He moved so fast the two cultivators' faces filled with shock. So fast, they looked over their shoulders. A blood-curdling scream echoed. An early nascent soul stage priest. Meng Hao used the first form of the blood immortal divine abilities, and the man exploded instantly. That was the first, Meng Hao said coolly. He waved his arm, brushing away the gore. The Great Father and High Priest glared back, pointing out toward him. A five-colored mist flew and surrounded him. A mocking smile appeared on Meng Hao's mouth. A miserable scream sounded. He disappeared and reappeared before another priest, his hand gripping the man's neck. He crushed his throat. Flesh and blood flew. Meng Hao disappeared. That was the second. The High Priest lifted his head and howled. His face distorted as he performed a double-handed incantation. A five-colored glow spread in all directions. Ripples emanated from Meng Hao as he was about to disappear. "There won't be a third," cried the High Priest, intense killing intent in his voice as he shot toward Meng Hao. A shocking roar of despair filled the sky. One of the five poisons tribe's sacred ancients. The cry was miserable, fear and astonishment in its final moments. An enormous toad in a red light. Its body withered as its life force was sucked away. Simultaneously, many Five Poisons tribe members began to tremble and cough up blood. Hopelessness filled their eyes. Despairing cries rose from the cultivators. The Toad Sacred Ancient perished. Of the five sacred ancients, two were sealed and two have perished. Only the centipede remains, but it's being pursued. Could the heavens wish for the Five Poisons tribe's destruction? The fighting didn't stop. The Five Poisons tribe's position grew more severe. The priests near Meng Hao coughed up blood, their cultivation bases falling. The high priest charging Meng Hao's body trembled. He coughed blood too. As he coughed, Meng Hao appeared directly behind him, eyes glittering with killing intent. He formed a fist and punched. A boom sounded. The high priest's body twisted and a black mist shot out to cover him. Meng Hao's fist slammed into it, cracking but not shattering it. The mist reformed, condensing into the high priest's image, his face pale. He coughed blood, his eyes filled with fury. "Meng Hao," he roared. The Five Poisons tribe Greatfather's eyes went bloodshot. Filled with madness, he exploded toward Meng Hao with all his power. Meng Hao gave a cold snort. He ceased pursuing the high priest, transforming into black moon and green smoke as he shot into the distance. Neither the Greatfather nor high priest could match his speed. Their hearts boiling with rage, they followed. But at that moment, a third blood-curdling scream filled the air. Then a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth. The early nascent soul stage priests were no match for Meng Hao. They couldn't even fight back as he slaughtered them. In moments, he destroyed them like crushing dried weeds. The third, the fourth, the fifth and the sixth, each kill echoed Meng Hao's cold voice across the battlefield. The Five Poisons tribe cultivators' faces drained of blood, filled with increasing despair. Many fled. Each time Meng Hao called out, the Crow Divinity tribe cultivators grew more inspired. The slaughter was monstrous. "Meng Hao," roared the high priest, "you're a grand dragoneer. How is your cultivation base so profound?" In his anxiousness, he didn't think about what he was saying. "As the sacred ancient of the Crow Divinity tribe, you have high status. Isn't killing early nascent soul priests beneath you?" "Nope," replied Meng Hao. His body flickered and he appeared next to another nascent soul priest. The shocked man tried to self-detonate, but Meng Hao's first two fingers pointed out. The eighth demon sealing hex sealed his cultivation base, preventing the detonation. Meng Hao's fingers stabbed the man's forehead, smashing his cultivation base instantly. "Meng Hao," shouted the Greatfather, "do you dare fight one-on-one with me?" His heart was filled with anxiety, but Meng Hao's speed was such that he couldn't catch up. The remaining nascent soul priests fled, but couldn't match his speed. With Yichenzi's escape art, his speed had reached a terrifying level. At that moment, a blood-curdling scream echoed in the distance, shaking everything. An enormous centipede writhed above in a red glow. A red light passed through it, sucking away all its life force. The centipede went stiff, its scream cut off. The Five Poisons tribe's centipede sacred ancient, the last totem, had been destroyed. All the Five Poisons tribe's totems were gone as if directly erased. Not even one remained. "Sacred ancient. My cultivation base, the sacred ancients are all dead. The Five Poisons tribe is dying." All the 5 Poisons tribe cultivators coughed blood. Their bodies sagged as cultivation bases sank. Core formation became foundation establishment. Foundation establishment became chi condensation. Howls of despair rose. They felt what the original Crow Divinity tribe members had known, but Meng Hao was there then and became their sacred ancient. The 5 Poisons tribe had nothing like that now. The remaining 5 or 6 nascent soul priests fought the Crow Divinity nascent soul elders. Their faces paled. They couldn't stop their cultivation bases from wasting. In a blink, they became core formation cultivators. The moment they dropped to core formation in the blink of an eye, their bodies shook. Heads lopped off, bodies exploded, all slaughtered in an instant by the Crow Divinity elders. The massacre continued as 5 Poisons tribe cultivation bases plummeted. Now only the High Priest and Greatfather remained as nascent soul cultivators, yet they too paid a steep price from the sacred ancients' deaths. Their cultivation bases declined from late nascent soul to mid-stage. The decline would continue toward early nascent soul. The green smoke congealed into Meng Hao. He put on the blood-colored mask and turned to face the 5 Poisons tribe Greatfather and High Priest. "Did you say you wanted to fight me?" he asked coolly. "Despicable," said the 5 Poisons tribe High Priest, his face flickering as he stared at Meng Hao. He ground his teeth and edged backward. He was no longer late nascent soul stage. Facing Meng Hao filled his heart with fear. A whistling sound echoed from the distance. The blood clone. Having slaughtered the 2 sacred ancients, it was returning, lust for blood unsated. Meng Hao realized he couldn't sense a connection to the clone. In a blink, the bloody figure pounced on the High Priest. This man had once stood lofty and proud outside the Crow Divinity tribes. Now shock filled his face. Power exploded from his cultivation base. Divine abilities and magical items appeared. He held nothing back, trying to block the clone. But the clone charged through it all and pounced. Time seemed to slow for a moment. When the clone left the High Priest, his body was withered. His life force was sucked away, his nascent soul dried and dead. He was now a desiccated corpse, completely drained. The corpse fell with an expression of dread, shock, and deep regret. The blood clone shot through midair toward the battling tribe members, slamming into the 5 Poisons tribe cultivators. It passed through the battleground like a sea of blood, leaving only desiccated corpses. The Greatfather watched, his aged figure emanating even more death chi. He seemed so old he might fall into a grave at any moment. "The 5 Poisons tribe has lost this battle," he said, as screams echoed. Pain filled his heart as he turned to Meng Hao, clasped hands, and bowed deeply. "I earnestly request that you leave some hope for the 5 Poisons tribe." Meng Hao looked at him silently. Screams filled the air. After a long moment, he calmly replied, "If the Crow Divinity tribe were the loser and I made such a request, would you comply?" The Greatfather was filled with bitterness. He knew such a thing would never happen. If the 5 Poisons tribe had won, the Crow Divinity tribe would have been completely wiped out, old, young, all members. The entire tribe would be eradicated. This was not personal vendetta, it was a war between tribes. No mercy, no pity, only life and death. "I understand. We shall fight." He took a deep breath and lifted his head. His eyes filled with the will to go to battle, but deep within was a desire for death. "To be killed by the Crow Divinity tribe's sacred ancient is worthy," the Greatfather said lightly. "As Greatfather of the 5 Poison tribe, I curse you and the Crow Divinity tribe. But despite meeting death on the path to the Black Lands, we are both Western Desert cultivators. I hope the Crow Divinity tribe will surpass its former glory. We are all Western Desert cultivators." His body flickered as he shot toward Meng Hao. Meng Hao saw the Greatfather's desire to die and inwardly sighed with regret. But this caused no sloppiness. His eyes glittered coldly as he strode forward. They met in midair. Booms echoed across the battlefield. The Greatfather unleashed divine ability after divine ability, like a flower at death's point, wanting to shine with as much life as possible. Magical techniques slammed together. Divine abilities exploded. 5 Poisons tribe cultivators died everywhere. The screams grew faint and fewer. After 10 breaths, the Greatfather coughed blood. Laughing uproariously, he charged toward Meng Hao again. After 20 breaths, he had lost one arm. Still laughing toward the heavens, he charged again. 30 breaths later, a deafening roar filled the air. A gigantic mist rose. Meng Hao slipped off the blood-colored mask, turned, and walked off. Behind him, the Greatfather exploded into countless chunks. In his moment of death, confusion filled his eyes, and within it, release from worldly cares. He was dead, body and spirit. The instant the Greatfather died, The blood clone sucked the life and blood from the last 5 Poisons tribe cultivator on the battlefield. The battle with the 5 Poisons tribe was now completely over. But as Meng Hao heaved a sigh of relief, his pupils constricted. His body flickered, reappearing before one of the Crow Divinity tribe members. He lifted his hand and pushed it forward. "Screw off," he said, his expression vicious. His voice was like thunder, shaking everything. His gesture seemed to rip the air. Ripples revealed something shooting through it, the blood clone. It was a Jai clan blood clone that looked like Meng Hao, except for the bloody glow emanating from it. It stood before him, its eyes shining with displeasure and struggle. Its bloodlust after killing the final cultivator had caused it to instinctively seek the nearest living thing to consume. The Crow Divinity tribe members sighed with relief. As battle frenzy wore off, they fell back, taking the neo-demons with them. Within moments, all tribe members and neo-demons stood behind Meng Hao. Even the Outlander beast retreated, panting, instinctively fearful. Only the meat jelly and the parrot dared remain, one on each of Meng Hao's shoulders, looking arrogantly at the Jai clan blood clone. "This bastard is too ugly," said the parrot appraisingly. "No hair at all, how could something like this exist? Although his aura seems familiar, I can't place it." The meat jelly gave the clone a measuring look, then greeted it amicably. "Hey, hi there, hello, I'm Lord Third. Let me tell you something. Do you know how high I can count? I can count to 3. The blood clone stared at Meng Hao, ignoring the parrot and meat jelly. An innate haughtiness within it clashed with the seal connecting it to Meng Hao. That conflict twisted its face, and it let out a howl toward him. Its cultivation base was special. It had no core formation, nascent soul, or spirit-severing aura, just a fearsome aura that exceeded any cultivation base. This aura made it a terrible enemy to all living things. Absorbing blood and life force from powerful experts strengthened its aura further. Without the blood, immortal legacy magic and control techniques, it would take terrifying instinctive actions. Looking at the clone growling there, his heart sank. From the blood immortal legacy records, he knew revolts could occur when using blood to refine spirits. Generally, that happened with blood divinities, rarely with blood spirits, almost never with blood clones. Yet this Jai clan blood clone, though definitely only a blood clone, showed signs of revolt. The blood immortal had never anticipated this. His thoughts turned to that mysterious drop of Jai blood. The clone's red eyes flickered. It howled and charged toward Meng Hao, but Meng Hao's eyes shone with red light. His pupils turned bright red, magical symbols appeared within them. The clone screamed and backed away. Meng Hao gave a cold snort. Lifting his right hand, he performed an incantation without hesitation, using a blood immortal legacy technique. All his power poured into a restrictive seal he had placed inside the clone during refinement. The clone screamed miserably and trembled. After time for half an incense stick to burn, its body collapsed, transforming into a drop of blood. Meng Hao waved his hand to collect the seal, then picked up the drop. As soon as the blood touched his palm, it transformed into a strand of silk, eyeless larva silk, the core of the Jai clan blood clone. Meng Hao's expression was calm as he dealt with the clone, but his heart was filled with somberness. This was the first sign of revolt, forcing him to unleash the seal's full power. If it happened again, the same seal might be ineffective. His eyes flickered with thoughtfulness. If I refined using the conjuring method for blood spirits, the seal's effectiveness should increase. His mind settled. Meng Hao led the Crow Divinity tribe and Neo-Demon horde off the battlefield. He collected the sacred ancients' corpses and the 5 Poisons tribe's flying machine, and slowly departed. After they left, a ripple appeared in the air atop a mountain near the battlefield, nearly submerged in violet rainwater. Xianxia appeared. She chuckled, looking at the departing Crow Divinity tribe. "I've underestimated him again. I thought he'd pay a higher price for victory, perhaps waste dancing sword chi. I never imagined he'd only need the Agarwood's power. How many times can he summon it? How much sword chi does he have?" Lost in thought, she stood there, her brow furrowed. Finally, she smiled. "It doesn't matter. Why figure those things out? Many years remain before the primordial demon immortal plane opens. I'll enjoy South Heaven." Laughing, her body flickered and she disappeared. The moment she disappeared, Meng Hao, leading the Crow Divinity tribe, glanced over his shoulder, his eyes shining brightly. This chapter sponsored by Jasmine Cintura, Lim Derrick and Neil Anthony Langide. Chapter 488, Entering the Central Region. The Crow Divinity tribe had won a great victory and exterminated the 5 Poisons tribe. But victory had come at a heavy price. Of 10,000 cultivators, only 3,000 remained, but they had undergone baptism. In cultivation base and impression, they were now sharp as swords, deadly, unsheathed swords. All battles made death mean little to them. Amidst blood and killing, even what it meant to be a cultivator changed in their hearts. The 3,000 survivors could match the most powerful members of the 5 Crow divinity tribes from years ago. War wipes out tribes, but it also causes them to rise to prominence. It kills people, but it gives birth to new life. The Crow divinity tribe had been reborn. If they continued this way, by the time they reached the Black Lands, they would be a great tribe risen to prominence in the Western Desert apocalypse. Based on their battle prowess and decisiveness, they would become a tribe that even other great tribes would fear. At the same time, Meng Hao's strength continued to grow. Every time he fought through desperate crisis, wild faith grew in the Crow divinity tribe members' hearts. It became piety, faith power that circulated around him and fused into his body. Although he could not absorb it, its existence within him caused his life force to flourish, and his divine abilities and magical techniques to increase dramatically. The faith of the Crow divinity tribe members had the potential to increase his power. At the same time, his own might caused the tribe members' cultivation bases to rise. The amalgamation of the 5 elements will give the Crow divinity tribe a mighty leap forward, thought Meng Hao. He sat on the flying viper's head. Wind beat against his face as he looked out at the lands below. After the battle, Meng Hao had absorbed the 5 poisons tribe's remaining neo-demons. Many had died, but his horde now numbered around 50,000. They had acquired resources from the 5 poison tribes. Most importantly, they had this precious flying machine that could hold thousands. The gigantic viper whistled through the air, carrying all the Crow divinity tribe members on their journey. Its incredible speed filled them with hope and allowed them to put aside the horrific brutality of the battle. 2 years of walking out from the Western Desert North region, many battles, a final clash with the 5 Poisons tribe. Now it was as if a door had opened. After passing through, the Crow divinity tribe's glory would be known in the Western lands again. The viper shot through the air for many days. They passed over tribes without flying machines and covered farther than 10 years on foot would have. The further south they flew, the fewer lakes appeared and the more rivers. The southern lands had higher elevation. Northern areas were becoming seas. Several days later, a black mountain range became visible, stretching endlessly ahead. Sitting next to Meng Hao was the Crow divinity tribe greatfather. His face was pale, his body aged. Looking into the distance, he coughed and slowly said, "This is the true demarcation between the Western Desert North region and the Central region, the Ink-Killen Mountain Range." During the battle, the Greatfather had burned his own life force to delay the enemy high priest. Despite months of treatment with medicinal pills and healing from his wood-type totem, his foundation was harmed. He knew death drew close. He had about half a 60-year cycle left. He felt no regrets. Half a cycle was enough to watch the Crow divinity tribe enter the Black Lands. He might even spend time living with them there. That was enough. During months of travel, he had not practiced cultivation but lived like an ordinary person. He slept and sometimes dreamed, something he hadn't experienced in many years. In his dreams, he saw other greatfathers he had fought and schemed against. They were smiling, beckoning to him, inviting him to leave with them. They had fought a lifetime, but now he was the only one left. He would wake feeling lonely. "After we pass these mountains," he continued lowly, "we will be in the Western Desert Central region. That's where the largest groups of cultivators gather." He coughed a few more times. "Our spirit stones are sufficient," he went on. "Unfortunately, this 5 Poisons tribe flying treasure won't last long. It was overloaded earlier and damaged. It won't sustain flight beyond half a year." The Greatfather frowned anxiously. Meng Hao nodded but did not respond. As the viper shot over the Ink-Killen Mountains, a vast tableau opened before his eyes, an enormous plain completely different from the northern lands. Although violet rain fell here, greenery remained where the rain hadn't exterminated all vegetation. As they proceeded south, the extinguished spiritual energy suddenly came to life. The Crow divinity tribe members instantly felt enlivened. Meng Hao frowned. Because spiritual energy was not completely cut off here, and not all life was exterminated, there would be more tribes. "Now that we're here, we need to be more cautious," he said. He sent the viper forward to search the plains for a place to rest and reorganize. At the same time, he waved his hand, and a large group of black crows appeared and flew west, south, and east. They shot off and quickly disappeared. Half a month passed. They had not encountered any local cultivators. Nonetheless, the Crow divinity tribe remained vigilant, keeping watch in all directions. One afternoon, a black beam of light appeared in the sky. It shot toward the flying treasure and transformed into a black crow before Meng Hao. It hovered, emitting a soundless call. Meng Hao's eyes glowed. He lifted his hand. The crow landed on his palm and disappeared. Another half-month passed. The black crows returned repeatedly at high speed with reports. Through the crow's eyes, Meng Hao saw the surrounding lands. Using their bodies, he could extend his spiritual senses' range. When all the crows had returned, Meng Hao was as familiar with the area as the back of his own hand. He waved his hand and a map appeared. There are 7 tribes in the area, all mid-sized. The smallest numbers in thousands, the largest is 20,000 strong. The Great Father and other nascent soul cultivators sat around Meng Hao, looking with interest at the map. These 2 tribes are closest to us, Meng Hao continued. They're already aware of our demon spirit, but tribes who migrated this far have experienced hardships. They won't move lightly and will try to scout us. In recent days, he said calmly, I've sensed at least 2 waves of divine sense sweep over us, assuredly from the sacred ancients of those 2 tribes. The cultivators said nothing. What interests me most is this place, said Meng Hao, pointing to a spot about 2 weeks away by flight. This place seems strange, occupied by 7 or 8 tribes. My neo-demons report they've constructed a trade outpost. He frowned. They've formed an alliance, said a middle-aged nascent soul cultivator, a more recent addition. Because of the apocalypse and increasing violet rainfall, some tribes form alliances instead of fighting. Combined, they're stronger and have better survival chances. That must be the alliance you referred to. As for the trade outpost, I've passed through this region before. Tribes here form mobile trade outposts. Some are nothing more than that. Elder Sun is correct, said the Crow Gloom tribe Grand Elder, who had already switched to Meng Hao's wood-type totem. I've heard of this. After these tribes formed their alliance, they constructed a trade outpost for resource trading. They all have needs, but together, they're more confident of reaching the Black Lands. He had climbed back to early nascent soul stage. Logically, said Elder Sun, such an outpost won't stay in place long. They'll move forward, grow stronger, continuously trade with people they encounter. That's exactly where we need to go. We might purchase a long-range flying treasure or other useful items. I've even heard that in some great tribes' outposts, you can purchase sacred ancients from wiped-out tribes. The question is, do we trade with this alliance or rob them? Everyone's eyes shone brightly. They looked toward Meng Hao for his decision. Meng Hao was quiet for a while. If the alliance chooses to trade with us, we trade. If they want war, we bring them war. Chapter 489, 8-Branch Alliance. Meng Hao's words caused the surrounding nascent soul cultivators to sit thoughtfully before cold glows appeared in their eyes, then killing intent. Especially Elder Sun, who licked his lips, his eyes glinting viciously. Meng Hao closed his eyes and pointed his finger down. Demonic chi shot up from the plain, swirling into a figure, Meng Hao's demonic incarnation. The figure contained Meng Hao's spiritual sense. A black cloak wrapped around it, turning it into a black-cloaked man. The man floated in the air, facial features indistinguishable. Meng Hao's voice spoke from the hood. The tribe and my true self will not move. I'll send this clone to that alliance. The cultivators nodded. They were used to Meng Hao's bizarre divine abilities. The black-cloaked figure turned to Elder Sun. You've traveled this area before, Elder Sun. Accompany me on this expedition. Elder Sun rose to his feet and bowed. The Great Father also rose. He produced a bag of holding containing spirit stones and resources, handing it to Meng Hao. The demonic incarnation flew off, followed by Elder Sun. In a blink, they became beams of colorful light shooting into the distance. After it left, Meng Hao opened his eyes. We'll rest and reorganize here for a few days, he said coolly. Afterward, whether we engage in business or war depends on the tribe's will. His words carried the voice of the tribe. The cultivators nodded. The Crow Divinity tribe stationed themselves in the area, their first prolonged rest during the migration. Meng Hao's demonic incarnation flew through the western desert central region with Elder Sun. They moved at high speed, occasionally using minor teleportation as they headed toward the alliance. A few days later, Meng Hao asked, Elder Sun, do you have acquaintances in this area? Elder Sun seemed very familiar with it, occasionally looking around with a wistful expression. Elder Sun chuckled. To be honest, exalted sacred ancient, I made a few enemies here years ago. They chased me, which is how I came to know the area. Elder Sun was skinny and wizened, with a mustache shaped like the character Chinese letter. A scar stretched down his left face to his neck, making him look sinister. Meng Hao nodded and declined to inquire further. They continued flying as beams of colorful light. Time passed. They covered in 10 days what the flying machine would take a month to travel. It took that long because of Elder Sun. Alone, Meng Hao would have arrived in 5 days. One day, more than 10,000 tents appeared ahead on the plain, arranged in concentric rings around a city. They were densely packed in special patterns like a spell formation with protective powers. The tents organized into 8 different patterns, sealing marks representing the 8 tribes forming the alliance. The city sat at the center. From above, Meng Hao saw many cultivators coming and going. The scene was quite lively. About 3,000 meters away, an old man's voice called out from the alliance direction. Welcome to the 8-branch alliance. We are 8 tribes allied here for 5 months. Flying is prohibited for 3,000 meters in all directions. If you've come to trade, you're welcome. An old man appeared before them. Blotchy brown marks covered his face. He looked them over and continued, I am Yunzi. You don't look familiar. Where are you from? After examining Elder Sun, his eyes rested on Meng Hao and his pupils constricted. Yunzi was early nascent soul stage. That he couldn't see this black-cloaked man's cultivation base filled him with vigilance. Since Meng Hao didn't speak, Elder Sun laughingly clasped hands. I am Sun Dahai. Our tribe migrates from the western desert north region and is passing through. We heard of your 8-branch alliance and decided to trade for necessary items. Yunzi's eyes shifted from Sun Dahai to look behind them, where nothing appeared. His expression ordinary, he suddenly smiled. The 8-branch alliance welcomes all who wish to trade. Welcome, he gestured welcomingly. The 3 descended and walked toward the alliance. That you migrated from the north here shows your tribe is extraordinary, fellow Taoist son. There were many twists and turns along the way, but let's not speak of that. Fellow Taoist your 8-branch alliance seems very likely to reach the Black Lands. My congratulations. Thank you for your auspicious words. What items do you seek? Nothing special, just odds and ends. Neo-demon hordes if available would be excellent. Laughing, Sun Dahai continued vague chat with Yunzi as they walked. Meng Hao remained silent, letting them feel each other out. When they reached the border, Yunzi smiled and clasped hands, watching them enter. Then a dour look appeared on his face. A man's voice called out, Brother is there something fishy about those 2? The air rippled. A man and woman appeared, both middle-aged. The man wore a scholar's robe, the woman wore a lady's gown. 1. Specifically, she is described as wearing the kind of casual garment that royal concubines or princesses would wear. Here are some pictures. Yunzi slowly said, they claim they came from the north. Nothing unusual about Sun. But the black-cloaked man, I can't see his cultivation base. His aura is cold and dark. To forestall mishaps, I suggest we allow them to leave. Before he finished, the woman interrupted. There's nothing to worry about, she said. He's not a spirit-severing patriarch. Even at late nascent soul, he's only one person. The net is cast. When we draw it in, no mishaps will occur. No need to worry. The scholarly man laughed coldly. Just one trifling person. Brother don't concern yourself. We'll let the net stay cast a few more days, then draw it in according to the elders' agreement. If they really came from the north with their tribe, we'll catch a big fish. The woman continued. When we draw the net in, their tribe will be revealed and become resources for our 8-branch alliance. Our rest here won't be in vain. Bad fortune for them. They can't blame anyone but themselves. The man and woman departed. Yunzi frowned. After a long moment, he shook his head. Maybe I'm overthinking it. He disappeared. After entering, Meng Hao and Sun Dahai split up. Sun Dahai had practiced for many years and was experienced at making discreet inquiries, so Meng Hao strolled alone. The city was large with many shops and stores. Items ranged from neo-demon hordes to solitary powerful demons, even shoddy medicinal pills and flying treasures. No prices were listed, only auction indications. Yet Meng Hao got a feel for the city's majesty. Many cultivators filled it. It could hold nearly 10,000, making it quite bustling. Walking, Meng Hao's pupils constricted. A simple structure was actually a luxurious shop specializing in totems. Different tribes had different totem branding methods, and this place sold various methods at various prices. Meng Hao's attention was caught instantly. Most were cheap, designed for functionality only, not cultivation-based breakthroughs. After looking around, he understood the city better. About 2 hours later, halfway through, he stopped abruptly. He sensed demonic chi from a nearby shop, a place that sold totemic sacred ancients. Incredibly powerful neodemons that could be turned into totems. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. He was about to enter when a man appeared before him, dressed like a scholar, the man from earlier. The man laughed and blocked his way. "Fellow Taoist, things here will auction in 7 days. Purchase them then." Meng Hao looked at him with cold, glittering eyes. Without a word, he turned and walked away. The scholar's pupils constricted. When Meng Hao looked at him, he'd used divine sense to feel him out, but all it sensed was rippling nothingness. It couldn't pierce inside, not even slightly. "That man is very strange," the scholar said, his eyes narrowing. Meng Hao's expression didn't change as he walked. Deep in his cloak, his eyes gleamed coldly. "This place is interesting. Everything seems purchasable only at auction. Everything seems ordinary but thinking carefully." Sun Dahai's name in Chinese is Chinese letter Sun Dahai. Sun is a surname. Dahai means ocean.